Promotional consideration paid for by the following.
Today's episode comes to you from the Blue Chew studio. When you buy 2 months of Blue Chew Gold, you get the third for free with promo code WRESTLE. You'll also receive an additional 10% off plus free overnight shipping on your first order at BlueChew.com.
Welcome to Something to Wrestle With.
Something to wrestle with.
Bruce Prichard.
Bruce Prichard.
Well, you know.
That's not a rib.
No, yeah, but me.
There's no box of gimmicks.
Rumor and innuendo.
I don't deal in rumor and innuendo. And was he there? I was there. I don't give a shit.
Welcome to Something to Wrestle With.
Something to wrestle with. Something to wrestle with.
Something to wrestle with. Bruce Prichard.
Hey, it's Conrad the Mortgage Guy, and you're listening to Something to Wrestle With. John Layfield. John, how are you, man?
Conrad, I am doing absolutely fantastic, and Bradshaw 316 still says, I just stole your fucking podcast.
Well, and we're having a lot of fun with it, too, and boy, oh boy, the day has finally come. It does feel like we should just hit the big news right at the start of the show. There has been maybe the biggest lawsuit in wrestling history, or certainly on the list. One of the more important stories of modern wrestling history. Feels like it's coming to an end. Of course, this year, Vince McMahon has settled the shareholder lawsuit as well as TKO. And now it felt like there was just a personal issue from January 2024 when that lawsuit was filed by Miss Janelle Grant. They've gone off to private arbitration now. So it looks like this whole nightmare is going to be over. I hope that we're going to get some closure in every different degree and angle that we can expect that. I don't know what I expected, but this did kind of feel inevitable. But the question mark was, hey, when would this happen? And it looks like the time is now. What'd you think when you saw the news, John?
Very happy. I like Vince, and I had no idea of the veracity of the case. I didn't hear any of this when I was there. It does not mean that all of it might be might be true. Have no idea of the truth of what is true, what isn't. I just know Vince is a friend of mine, and this doesn't sound anything like him. People are going to obviously going to take me to task over that. That's fine. He's my friend, and I'm very happy that it's dismissed. I hope Vince does something left in the business. I just can't believe that a guy that worked 24 hours a day for so long can simply retire and go tour around Italy. I just don't think that's in Vince's DNA. So I'm excited to see what he does next.
Yeah, listen, I don't want to relitigate what was or wasn't in the lawsuit. At this point, none of it matters. The lawsuit is dismissed. It won't be refiled. It's going to private arbitration. I just hope that there's closure on both sides. I can't imagine the hell this has been on both sides. I think it's fair to say both parties have had their lives turned upside down, but that's their private business. I'll let them sort that out. I am curious, though, from a business perspective. You know, it's almost unimaginable a few years ago or at any point in my life, John, that we would say that, hey, Vince McMahon isn't involved in WWE. It felt like, well, that'll never happen. He's going to be there all the way, cradle to the grave with this company, so to speak. And now he finds himself as clearly one of the largest shareholders of TKO, and he's enjoyed phenomenal financial success. But to your point, I don't even know Vince McMahon, but what we've always heard is he's a workaholic. He wants to stay busy. He wants to do stuff. So the question now is louder than at any point in the last 3 or 4 years. What is Vince going to do next? What say you, John? What if you were a betting man, and you are, if you were handicapping this, where would the smart money go? You think Vince is going to do blank? What will that be?
Oh, that is a great question. I talk about the lawsuit just for just a second. I've seen Vince settle a lot of lawsuits. And look, I'm not talking about the veracity of this, so don't take this out of context. But whether I think it's true or not, I've seen Vince settle a lot of things just because settling was easier. As they say, good settlement beats a bad lawsuit any day of the week, and then vice versa. Vince a lot of times just wanted to get out of stuff, and it was easier for him just to pay something off. So I'm surprised this wasn't settled earlier because of that. But now the question is, what do you do? TKO was very sensitive to guys. You look at what's happened with, like Hamburguesa down in AAA. The young guy was really over and did something a little crazy. Said it ended up on a fan's lap or something. He back elbowed him or something. I didn't see the video, but I think that's what I saw. Actually, I saw part of the video. Didn't look that bad, but TKO, they're not going to put up with any of this stuff anymore. It is old chicanery, as we used to say. So as long as this lawsuit was looming, Vince, there was no way Vince was coming back. Those guys think very highly of him. Vince is the one that brokered this deal. This $9.3 billion deal that he made, that he retained control. I mean, that's Game of Thrones stuff right there, by the way, that he actually retained control. That I don't know how that's possible. One of the greatest negotiators in the world, he and Nick Khan. But a lot of these guys are his guys. Ari Emanuel's one of his guys. Nick Khan's one of his guys. Triple H is his son-in-law. So I hope he does something. I mean, can you imagine the reaction when he comes back? Now, it depends on the city you're in. The place is going to go nuts and go crazy cheering for him. Some place will probably boo him out of the building. I have no idea. As Vince would say, let the fans do what they want. I'd love to see him come back and do something. I don't know if that's the case or not. You ask, where would he go if he doesn't? From what I hear, and I don't have any inside information from him or any people around him, he's got some type of deal that he's working on right now out in Hollywood, from what I hear. And again, I hear that from the internet mainly, not from Vince or his close associates. That doesn't sound like him. And it doesn't sound like him that he's going to be a guy that invests in a lot of different projects that he doesn't run. Vince can't stand to see stuff. I remember him talking about Walking Dead one time. And he was talking, I watched Walking Dead, and I was talking about it on a plane. He goes, I watched it for a while, and they went from digital to whatever else. And he goes, right in the middle of the show, just terrible. Vince can't watch something without wanting to put his fingerprints all over it and control it. I can't see him investing in something else and being like the angel investor that invests in stuff that doesn't actually run stuff. So, man, Connor, this is going to be interesting. I hope that he's ready to go, because this is going to make the world more fun if he is. What do you think he's going to do?
Well, that's really what I wanted to ask you about is, there's been a lot of discussion about Vince McMahon returning to WWE, and I can't imagine that he is going to be able to sort of lord over the company at this point. I mean, how could you possibly think about replacing Nick Khan given the financial success that TKO has enjoyed? So I don't know that is necessarily the play. And I don't know necessarily that it makes sense for him to be a full-time on-screen character. I do think he's going to get a hero's welcome when he's back in front of a WWE crowd. I think it depends on where that happens, but it does feel like it's inevitable that he's going to welcome the WWE universe to a show or a WrestleMania or something at Saudi at WrestleMania next year. Who knows? But that feels like that's inevitable. But behind the scenes, do you think he will contribute in a... I guess what I'm saying is I can't imagine that he's going to be a part of a creative committee. So it feels like that doesn't feel even possible to me. So does that designate that, hey, if he doesn't have, sort of chairman power and he's not necessarily leading the creative charge, because I don't think it's likely he'd replace Nick Khan or Triple H necessarily, but he'd make a great board member maybe. It feels like this could be something in the back pocket for TKO, that if they ever need to give the stock a boost, if there's any sort of maybe shaky confidence on Wall Street about what is the future of TKO, saying, hey, we're bringing Vince McMahon back, that might get a little bit of a spike from institutional investors. Am I overthinking that? What do you think where would he fit in?
A board member is where I think he'd fit in the most. Look, he's not going to replace Nick Khan. Nick Khan is one of the best negotiators I've ever seen in my life. Vince brought Nick in. I mean, Nick, that guy can negotiate anything. These billion-dollar contracts that have come up. I mean, Nick Khan is a freaking rainmaker, and there's no reason to replace a rainmaker even with another rainmaker. So I don't think that's even in the cards anywhere. As far as Triple H, I don't think that is either. Vince is not going to be part of creative. I don't think. I think he would run creative if maybe you asked him to, but I don't think he'd be part of creative. Now, maybe he'd give some, insight here and there, but, he is such an overwhelming personality. Vince has always been the boss. And for him to come in, I just don't see how he can play that well with others as somebody that's underneath somebody.
Yes.
Now, as far as an overall perspective, would he work with Ari and say, here's what we can do, and here's our global perspective? What would you do as a person that can broker deals, say, with the Middle East, with Asia, with people out there that would build a global company? I think that's where Vince fits in perfectly. is where something like that on that level of, we're going to take this company, we're going to make it all, we're going to, Vince had this idea from the 90s. And I've said this many times, Vince had an idea to have different territories in different continents, one down in South America, one in Asia, one in Europe, one in Australia, and had this global company, and I think that's kind of what you're seeing. That's certainly what you saw with AAA, and it's been a phenomenal buy. So I think that's where he fits in best.
It is going to be interesting to see what's next for Vince, because the entire wrestling world wants to know. And I realize that we're going to get attacked in some of the comments from people who have a strong opinion about Vince. And hey, I hear you, I understand. But what we're talking about is a business decision. And I don't think we could really tell the story without talking about where TKO stock is over the last 6 months. It's down 24%. 24% in 6 months is a big damn deal. At their absolute peak, it was $225 a share, I guess. And now it's down to 180 as we're recording right now. So when you see that sort of market cap sort of evaporate, maybe it's a big deal, maybe it's not. But if you continue down the road of, hey, we don't want to necessarily give some bad news, you kind of start thinking about, do we need a sandwich technique of, do we need some good news? How do we instill some more confidence? And maybe Vince on a board is the right approach. But I'm with you. I don't know necessarily that they could slide him into any of the other spots or why he would even want to do that. But we know that, man, he's pretty ambitious even at 80 some odd years old.
Yeah, and he might not even put him on the board. I mean, you might create a spot there for him that is not a public spot. If you've got a resource like Vince McMahon, I think if you don't try to use that, I think that's crazy. And I say the resource is, here's a guy who took a regional territory, a Northeast regional territory, and turned it into a global power. Here's a guy who took right around $1 million, 81 company, bought from his father, sold it for $9.3 billion. I mean, that guy there, he did something in wrestling nobody else could do, and everybody else was trying to do. If you have that guy, if I'm the CEO, if I'm CFO, whatever, if I'm on the board, I want his input. I want his advice. Okay, how do we get this over in Asia? How do we more predominantly? You're already in Japan. How do you get in China? How do you get in different? To me, this is a resource that should be tapped, because the knowledge there, the way Vince sees big pictures. Conrad, I've been in a lot of meetings, and Vince is the one guy who would ask questions that when you'd ask it, it's kind of like a great engineer. A great engineer compared to a good engineer. A good engineer will build something, you go, man, how do you do that? A great engineer will build it and go, well, I could have done that, because it's so simple. Vince could boil things down to simplicity. He would ask questions in meetings, and when he asked them, you go, why didn't I ask that? That's the question. People would go around the table, and Vince would always, pause a little bit and speak, and he'd always ask the question. Somehow he always cut through all of that. That's too valuable a resource for any company to not bring him in. Do you put him in a public role, like a board member or some officer? I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of baggage that comes with Vince too. So are you just bring him in as an advisor because he is a majority shareholder in the company and use him that way? Either way, I think he's a valuable resource to have.
Not to be that guy, but I don't think I don't think we can talk about this without at least acknowledging we haven't really heard from Vince throughout this entire process. He's been on the sidelines. He has issued statements through his attorney here, there, and yon when it was necessary. Yeah. But by and large, mum's the word. It feels like, once we know that this whole lawsuit is completely finished and behind, and it does feel like it's been dismissed, it's going to be out of the public eye, it's a private arbitration matter at this point. It feels like we're about to see, or the timing would be right for, maybe a Vince McMahon PR campaign. Yep. The rumor and innuendo I've heard is that maybe he was working on telling his life story. I know years ago there was talk about a book, there was talk about a movie, there was talk about a series. And we know that he's had a production studio in Santa Barbara for quite a while. I don't know what they've been working on, but it does feel like if he knew all along, or he hoped all along, that it would wind up in this place where it is going to go away. Everything's sort of finished now, where it's a shareholder piece or this personal lawsuit. If all of that is now behind him, Do you think we're going to see sort of the Vince McMahon story out there to rebrand? Because I don't think I can't imagine a scenario where Vince wants, the negative headlines of the most recent years to be the final word on his life and legacy and life's work. So the only way to sort of combat that is to tell your own story and be in control of that. Do you think that's a logical next step, or what would you expect?
Yes, I do. And I've seen Vince handle a lot of crisis, including with me. And he had such a good feel of it. And the game plan is always the same, or at least what I've seen has been the same. You just lay low and let it kind of burn out. And I know when Vince was handling the crisis, he goes, look, this is going to be a big deal for about 5 or 6 months. Then we're going to come back. We'll put a PR campaign together. We'll bring it back. We'll push it aside. That's exactly what happened. I mean, he's seen this over and over and over. Think about all the things that he's handled over all the years. I mean, you can list from the 80s to today all of the crazy things that he's handled. Some he's had no responsibility for, some he has, but he's handled all of them. He knows how to handle crisis, and he knows how to get things out there, as far as to bury stuff or to reframe the story. When you don't have your side of the story out there, you look at guys who don't respond on social media. It's always one-sided. So everything about Vince has been one-sided, very, very bad news, and maybe for good reason, but very bad news. Vince hasn't responded. People have not stuck up for Vince because they don't want to get canceled. So it's all been very one-sided. But when all this kind of goes under the rug, I think you're going to see a PR campaign here. I've seen this. I've seen this movie many, many times, Conrad, with Vince and how he's handled a crisis. And I think that's what you're going to see. And you're going to see a complete rebranding, so to speak, of Vince McMahon. Now, is that going to work with everybody? No. People are still going to hate it because if they want to. And a lot of people are just going to hate successful people. There's those people out there, and there are a lot of people who are going to believe the allegations against him. And that's certainly their right. And those allegations may be true. I have no idea. And they're never going to like him. But I think you're going to see a rebranding come out, and I think you're going to see a big push here. And I think it's going to be thought through. It's not going to be something like, hey, Vince is just going to start putting stuff out here and there. You're going to see a detailed plan here that is going to come out and is going to work to rebrand the Vince McMahon story, because I agree with you. He didn't want to go down like this. He doesn't want to go down as the guy that was pushed out and ostracized. I think there's new legs on this old story, and I think you're going to see it.
Yeah, I tend to agree. It does feel like it's time for a PR campaign. That would be the very next step. And to your point, when you don't really combat any of the negative things that have said, I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've gotten DMs or met people in person who would tell me that about, like, you and Jeff Jarrett. Like, man, I grew up hating those guys. Like, my entire life, I just hated those guys. And then you listen to this podcast or meet you guys in real life, and you're like, oh my God, Jeff Jarrett's terrific. He was just really good at doing his job. He was really good at being a heel. And obviously you played a heel on TV, but there's been a lot of stories that surround it. And those stories obviously make you feel like an even bigger villain. But if you're in the business of being a bad guy, why would you correct that and say, no, I'm a bad guy, but I didn't do all those bad things. So don't really boo me when you see me. If you're really a heel, you don't combat that. You just run with it, right?
Oh, 100%. I would never combat anything because I figure, hey, he just plays in the character. People, Tim Brooks always told me, Killer Tim Brooks always told me, when people start thinking that they don't like you, not the character you play, not the person in the ring, when they don't like you, that's when they draw money. I remember fans used to tell me something, I just don't like Killer Tim Brooks at all. It's not his character. I don't like Killer Tim Brooks. I've heard fans tell me that. And that's Killer. That's Killer getting over as a heel. So when all this negative stuff would come out about me, I wouldn't combat any of it. I'm not going to be the guy that comes out there and go, hey, I didn't do this. And I want to explain what happened, my side of the story. I'm really a good guy. Oh, by the way, next week, I want you to boo me on television. Come on. Give me a break. I mean, social media is not real. I'm not going to go in there and be some little douchebag and come out there. Oh, please don't hate me. And so when you're a bad guy, come on, give me a break. So no, I never fought any of those. There was a time where Vince, some magazine was doing some story on me, and Vince finally goes, okay, enough's enough. And Vince stopped the whole thing. stopped it. And he goes, hey, look, here's what really happened. Here's the whole story. Here's what really happened. Vince killed the whole thing. He had the ability to kill a lot of stories or to promote a lot of stories. Vince has been doing this a very, very long time. This isn't some 25-year-old kid who all of a sudden had some negative stuff in his life and people wanted to cancel him. This is a guy who's been around a long time, who's dealt with unbelievable stories, some of the craziest stories you've ever heard, and a lot you haven't heard. He's going to handle this, and I think it's going to be pretty remarkable what could happen in the next year.
It is going to be interesting to think what Vince is going to do next. Let's talk a little bit about what we think is most likely. We've talked about the possibilities of a WWE return. I do think that there is going to be, I would think sooner rather than later, certainly within the next year, we're going to see Vince McMahon on TV. I don't think it'll be in an angle necessarily, but just, hey, we're going to get in front of a crowd and wave. Do you think that happens at SummerSlam, or is that too soon and they're going to wait a little while?
I think it's too soon. I don't think Vince will do anything ad hoc. I mean, anything Vince does is going to be thought through. You know, Vince sometimes would do stuff, you know, just because you're working on 52 weeks of content a year, there's no reruns. He would do stuff and you do something like, hey, let's just try it and see. This is something that Vince has been able to sit around. This is him. And he's thought this through. This isn't dealing with some crisis with me or with somebody else or with somebody who slaps a reporter and stossels them. This is Vince working on his own legacy. And I think it's going to be thought through. I don't know if SummerSlam fits into that. If it does, get ready, because here comes the PR campaign that will follow. But I think that's probably too quick.
I don't know, but maybe I'm off on this. But I think the time would be WrestleMania, you know, to trot him out in front of the crowd. I mean, Vince McMahon returning at WrestleMania feels like a moment. And obviously he was the driving force, or no, maybe not the driving force, but he's the guy who put pen to paper on the Saudi deal originally. I can't imagine that they would push back on that. So we'll see what's next for Vince. But specifically, I wanted to ask, and again, I have no inside knowledge. John has no inside knowledge. We haven't talked to anybody. We're just two buddies talking about wrestling, and we happen to click record. But what do you think in terms of leverage? Like, if Vince McMahon, hypothetically, wants to be involved in wrestling because he misses it, he loves it, he's bored, he wants to best protect his investment, he thinks there's things he can improve on, whatever it may be, we know that he is a man with strong convictions, and he can often not be convinced otherwise. So if he makes his mind up that he wants to do something again, but he does get some pushback and they say, hey, thanks, but we got it. Does it become I used to hear the phrase about Paul Heyman and his relationship with WWE. The phrase was always, we'd rather have him in the tent pissing out than out of the tent pissing in. I feel like that's where you would want Vince, because Vince, if he were to say, hey, I'm going to do something outside of TKO, it feels like it would attract a massive amount of attention, and it might not be the type of attention that TKO wants. I guess I'm asking, do you think he can use leverage to get back into TKO, or is he going to instead go try something outside of the tent? Because that's what wrestling fans are most fascinated with right now, John.
Yeah, and I don't know if he starts up a wrestling. I don't say starts up a wrestling. He obviously has the money to do it, but I don't know if he would buy a company or anything like that. I kind of just don't think he will. I think he wants to take his company and do something with it. You know, I think he likes the idea of this being a publicly traded company worth, $14 or $15 billion, whatever it is right now. I think it's gone down a little bit since those numbers. But I think Vince, does he have leverage? Yeah, he has leverage because he's Vince McMahon. I think he could threaten, going somewhere else. That doesn't sound like him unless he actually is going to play the card or has the potential to play the card. I think the bigger threat is, hey, guys, I'm the one that built this company. I have great insight. Here's what I think we can do. Bring me in and we'll talk about it. And then I think that's the leverage, more of, do you want that brain in your office? I certainly do. I mean, I'd love to have Vince's brain in my head. I mean, based on what he's built, Vince is, that guy's a riverboat gambler, but he's also a guy that thinks things through, which is pretty rare. Vince is one of the rare guys that, when I worked on Wall Street, you had guys, one of two things normally. You had a guy that was very good with numbers, a very good, black and white ledger guy that could figure out numbers, or you had a guy that was incredibly creative. Very few times were the guys the same. Vince is one of those few guys. And so is there leverage there? I think it's leverage just because he's Vince.
Yeah, I totally agree. And it makes it interesting because when you say, hey, don't you want that brain in your office? I think most people would say yes. But then you think about what that looks like in practice. Like if hypothetically Vince were to be in a creative meeting, even if he's not sitting at the head of the table, which that in and of itself would feel weird.
Yeah.
But even if he weren't, I still feel like out of habit, a lot of people may be deferential to him or not really know how to handle or proceed. Like, I don't know. It feels like it could be different. I don't know that it would be successful. I don't know. I'm not saying it can't be. It's just hard for me to imagine a WWE without Vince. And now a couple of years later, it's hard for me to imagine a WWE with Vince. It's weird how just a couple of years can reframe everything.
And Vince is a brother. He steamrolls people.
Yeah.
He doesn't mean to, but people have told Vince before, you intimidate people. And Vince's like, why? Why do I do that? Like, just like what you're doing right now. Vince intimidates people. And I'm not sure he means to. I think when he snaps at people and he would say stuff to people, that's just Vince talking. I think he would take the same thing back to him. I know he would because I've dealt with him in private, and anybody will tell you that Vince you can say anything you want to Vince in private. Don't do it in front of people and don't try to embarrass him and tell him he's wrong in front of a bunch of people because, brother, he will blow up for a fight. But so I don't think unless he's head of the table, he's going to be able to play well with others. But so I'm talking about creative, something like that.
Right.
I just don't. And you have some of these young guys who've never been around Vince. A lot of these young guys are snowflakes. They don't know how they didn't grow up like we did, where people talk to each other differently. It's a different world, and I don't think they could handle Vince. But Ari Emanuel can, Nick Khan can, Triple H can, and you bring him in and for a bigger picture about how do you integrate this into this? How do you take the TV and make it more valuable? That's where Vince's expertise can come in. And these guys are alpha males, man. They're predators, just like Vince, and they'd be fine with him in an inner circle. Now, how do you make that public? I have no idea. But do you want him in that circle? I don't see how you could say no.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, it does feel like Vince has value, and to your point about him being, steamrolling people and being intimidating, I think you're spot on. And I know some people would hear that and say, "Oh, well, I wouldn't be intimidated by Vince." It's not about necessarily that you agree with his politics or you agree with the way he's achieved the success, but you can't argue the success that he's had and that he's created for others. So if you really are somebody who is followed his business life and the success that he had here. And I know people will point to, but what about these other things that he had that failed? It's like, how many people do we know who've created something that's as massively successful as WWE was? And I know there's a whole other narrative of, well, he really brought his dad's company. And it's like, guys, that's silly. Where his dad's company is and where Vince took it is a whole nother stratosphere. He's earned the right to be included in the conversation, but can they pull it off is what people are most interested in. And here's the part that I want to be careful with, because we don't know, but a lot of people online are making assumptions about what the real life personal relationship is with Paul Levesque and Vince McMahon and saying, well, they can't coexist. We don't pretend to know what that relationship is like. And frankly, it's none of our business on a family perspective. But one thing we've learned about Vince McMahon through the years, and I think he's made this very clear, he always wants to do, and this became something they said on TV a lot, what's best for business. I mean, think about the falling out that he had with Hulk Hogan or the Ultimate Warrior or Bret Hart or even Bruno Sammartino. In the end, Vince always set it all aside and did what was best for business. I can't imagine this would be any different now, John. No,
I can't either. And I can't imagine those guys that are in place would be any different than what Vince McMahon is now. You talk about his failures. I've never seen a guy that really was day one thinking like Vince. Most CEOs, when they do something like an ICO Pro or a bodybuilding federation or a football league, they're not going to give it up out of ego. Vince is like, okay, this isn't working. Let's go somewhere else. And he pulls the plug. I don't care if it's tens of millions of dollars or TV relationship. If he thinks that that's not what he best thing going forward, Vince pulls the plug on it. And I've never seen, I guess, well, from what I've worked with, a CEO that was willing to do that had so little ego in himself that they're willing to say, okay, this was a failure, pull the plug, we're going to the next thing. He had a couple things in the 70s where he went bankrupt. I was just out at last year, Evel Knievel jump, which, as Vince would say, an artistic success. Which, by the way, anytime he had a match that was the shits, me and Michael Cole would try to work in, that's an artistic success. And Vince would, fuck you. Because he lost his ass on Knievel. So Vince, I mean, think about this. If Vince hadn't lost his ass on Knievel, if he hadn't lost his ass on the Inoki fight, if he hadn't lost his ass on the couple businesses that he had in the early 70s, he probably wouldn't have gone to Cape Cod and started running that arena. And I always thought that's where Vince really learned how to be Vince, because he wasn't raised around his father. He wasn't really raised in the business. His father was in the business, but Vince was not around his father when he was being raised and brought up in the Carolinas. But when Vince went down to Cape Cod and started running shows for his father, started running an arena, Vince really learned the business. And that's when he came back and bought the company from his father. But if it hadn't been for those failures in the 70s, I don't think you would see the success you had in the 80s.
Well, if you're looking for success, look no further than Blue Chew. Today's episode and all of our episodes are sponsored by Blue Chews. Now you can measure your days in minutes, not in minutes or hours, but in rounds with your woman at Blue Chew Gold. Blue Chew Gold is better sex than a tablet. They've combined 4 ingredients into one powerful solution. You got 2 ingredients to get you ready physically and 2 to support arousal and desire in the brain. It works fast and it lasts. Now guys can have a complete experience in the bedroom with Blue Chew Gold. There's a reason Blue Chew is the #1 brand for better sex. Experience it for yourself at BlueChew.com. And we've got a special deal for our listeners. Right now, when you buy 2 months of Blue Chew Gold, you get the 3rd for free with the promo code Wrestle. That's promo code Wrestle. You'll also receive an additional 10% off plus free overnight shipping on your first order. Visit BlueChew.com for more details and important safety information. And we thank Blue Chew for sponsoring today's podcast and the bedroom. Hey, let's chat a little bit about, we mentioned a board member, right? Is that something that Vince is going to be looking at? Could he be a board member? Well, there's been a lot of chatter this week about your old, great, close personal friend, Tom Brady. Tom Brady has been the most successful quarterback in the history of the NFL, but also at different times, maybe the most hated. And all of a sudden we saw him over Fanatics weekend interacting a little bit with Logan Paul. He did a panel at Fanatics Fest and he made some sort of passing comment about how he'd like to do a WWE match. And he's waiting on Nick Khan to call him with an idea. And the next thing we know, he's nose to nose with Logan Paul. Tom Brady slaps Logan Paul. They actually attend a World Cup game not too far apart in New York, and they're both middle fingering each other. So there's a little bit of chatter about what may or may not happen with Tom Brady. And when there was a report from TMZ that said that, hey, Brady has been in conversation with WWE, I kind of quote tweeted that report and said, well, duh, like obviously he's been in conversation. And that led me to think, hey, is this going to be a Tom Brady match? And we know that we've seen a lot of other celebrity crossovers. Hey, we saw Gronk during the pandemic do something down in Tampa at the PC. I don't know that Logan Paul is going to be ready to do anything at SummerSlam. I can't imagine that Tom Brady is. So it does feel like if you're going to do something with Tom Brady, you may do it next year at WrestleMania. I don't know. Maybe I'm way off. Do you think we're going to see Tom Brady do a match? And would it make sense, in your opinion, to do like a tag match maybe?
I hope we do. Yeah. I think it'd be awesome. I think it'd be so much fun to have him out there. And, he did something with Cody. I saw him on a clip with Cody as well. So he's obviously doing a lot with WWE. So I think there's some talk that's going on. I mean, this is, to me, a perfect setup for it. And to have Tom Brady, possibly the greatest quarterback of all time. I mean, you could argue Bradshaw, Montana, never lost a Super Bowl, but Brady won 7. I mean, he has an argument for the GOAT debate. One of the best commentators, highest paid commentators out there right now. He's all over the place. This would be if he wanted to do it. Obviously, you're not going to be able to pay him enough to make it worth his while. It depends on what worth his while means, but this is something, if he wants to do it, I think he would do it. And apparently he's got some real interest here. And so, yeah, I hope we do. It's hard to believe you'd see him in a singles match, but you might. I saw him hitting the bag at one of
The
those
boxer
fanatics.
machine. Yeah, it's a boxer arcade machine.
Yeah, brother, what a punch he has. Of course, he's a great athlete, but God, what a punch he has. He might. He's obviously in great shape still, and you might could see him do something. I would think it'd be more like a tag match, but you never know. I mean, that would be huge if he did. I mean, Logan Paul is checking all the boxes, man. This guy's good. I mean, he is – what a boost he is to WWE. And if you get Brady, it's going to mainly be because of Logan Paul. And so I hope you do. I think it'd be a lot of fun. I have a hard time believing to be a singles match. I hope it is. But I can see him doing something. To pay this off, it's going to have to be more than just being in the corner of somebody. Maybe that's what the payoff is, but I think it's going to be something with him in the ring.
It feels like, since, let's not pretend that Cody Rhodes hadn't been running around calling himself QB1 for a while. If there is a tag match and maybe it's not going to be WrestleMania, maybe it is going to be like a big Royal Rumble event or maybe Survivor Series, who knows? But we got to get Logan Paul healthy. First of all, I know he's not too far removed from a tear surgery on his bicep, I believe, or maybe it was tricep. Either way, he's got his arm in a brace. So we know we're a ways away from that. But I could see Cody and Brady on one side and then Logan and someone else on the other. It will be interesting to see. And we want to know, let us know in the comments below. Are you in on a Tom Brady match at a PLE? There's been some pushback, John, and some chatter about WWE becoming maybe too obsessed with celebrity involvement. And I get that to a certain degree. But, man, a guy like Tom Brady, an accomplished an athlete as that is, I know that I'm going to get a little bit of hate on this, but go ahead and send me your hate tweets. If WWE in the mid to late 90s could have worked something out where Michael Jordan was going to do a match, are you kidding? They would have to do that. Like, look at what a boon it was for WCW and a feather in the cap for Eric Bischoff to have Karl Malone and Dennis Rodman. And no disrespect to those incredible Hall of Fame specimens that they are, but they didn't have all the Super Bowls that Tom Brady does. And the NFL just has a hold on American sports fans like no other sport ever has. It just feels like if WWE has an opportunity to do something with Tom Brady, they must, right?
Yeah, they must. I mean, look at also with Lawrence Taylor. I mean, there's so many guys. William Perry, who I danced with, by the way, at a WrestleMania party. I did dance with William Perry at a WrestleMania party. Not real proud of that, but I did. I did dance with William Perry. I don't know if I looked lonely or he looked lonely, but it happened. But we couldn't get anybody, Conrad, in the mid 90s. Until we got really hot in the late 90s. And Schwarzenegger came in and some other guys came in and was huge, by the way. That was the biggest star in the world at the time when Schwarzenegger came in, or one of the biggest stars. But in the mid-90s, we couldn't get anybody to come in. We couldn't sell tickets. And so to go from that to this, and all of a sudden now you're arguing about if there's too many celebrities, good Lord, man. Thank goodness these celebrities care enough. Look back, say, in the late 30s, 1930s, by the way. And yes, I'm bringing up something nobody knows about. Back when Jim Londos was big and you had Bronco Nagurski and you had Primo Carnera and you had different guys that wanted to get into wrestling, go into the 50s. The same thing. At different times, you've had wrestling get huge and people wanted to get involved in wrestling. In the mid 80s, for the first time in a while, when Hogan was big, you had celebrities want to be involved with wrestling. And, one of Vince's things that worked so successfully, and he took the same heat, was when he had all these celebrities for WrestleMania 1, 2, and 3. He's like, you don't need all those celebrities. You're just exposing the business, blah, blah, blah. He ran all those guys out of business. And so thank goodness these celebrities care enough that they want to be involved. And the program is so big that you want to be involved. This ESPN deal they've got, I watch ESPN all the time, or at least have it on in the background. Wrestling is on it not all the time, nonstop. And they're covering it. I mean, just literally covering it, not tongue-in-cheek covering it. They're covering it. It is unbelievable what wrestling has become. And I think it's awesome. I hope Brady does do something.
It's going to be interesting to think about what it could look like with Brady in the ring, but maybe what's even more interesting is what I maybe missed when I first sort of made a tongue-in-cheek response to, gee, you think Tom Brady might do something with WWE? We just saw him slap a superstar and flip him off and do a panel where he said, I would love to wrestle a match in WWE. I'm waiting on Nick Khan. I'm like, yeah, of course he does. And then friend of the show, Front Row Brian over on Twitter, quote tweeted and said, maybe Brady is buying into TKO and joining the board of directors. He owns stakes in the Raiders and Birmingham City Football Club. He could join Bob Kraft's son, Jonathan, on the board, who currently has 12 members. Tom is also UFC matchmaker Sean Shelby's first cousin. I'll admit, John, I did not realize how entrenched Tom Brady and his circle already was with TKO. And if you really are trying to, leverage some celebrity, create some brand opportunities, some marketing opportunities. I mean, we're seeing Brady out there endorsing things we never thought we would see once upon a time. He's got a Pizza Hut commercial now. Yeah. I'm saying all that to say you've got Dwayne Johnson on the board. Now you could have Tom Brady on the board. Like, I don't know what I was thinking, but I missed it. I thought, I guess Brady's just a wrestling fan and he wants to have fun. But I saw a lot of criticism from the hardcore diehard fan base of sports who hate wrestling. And they would say, this is embarrassing. Somebody's got to talk to Tom. Why would he do this? He's ruining his legacy as an icon on the gridiron. Well, if he's really doing it because he's going to be figured in as a member of the board, this looks a whole lot more likely and makes a lot more business sense, don't you think?
Yeah, absolutely. And you look at what a lot of these guys have done. Look at what Jordan has done. He's worth, I think, $3 billion right now or something like that because he leveraged out a lot of that Nike deal, but he leveraged a lot of that into other things as well. I mean, you look at a guy like Joe Montana, didn't care to become a commentator, didn't care to become, involved in other stuff. Now, he may be the GOAT, and I love Montana, but he didn't care to do all that. Brady, on the other hand, is more like LeBron James. LeBron has made a lot in basketball. He's made a lot through endorsements, but he's also got a lot of business interests. Look at what Shaq has done. He's a billionaire because of all the freaking fast food franchises that he owns, and he's an incredible businessman. Brady's very similar. These modern athletes are smart guys. Not that the old ones are not, but they're willing to take that celebrity that opens doors for them and get into other things. And I think Brady's one of these guys. He's got into ownership of the soccer club. He's got into ownership of the NFL team. He's keeping his name out there by becoming one of the highest paid commentators in the world today. He works nonstop. Look at Pat McAfee, what he's done. I mean, these guys that are leveraging their name and using it for business reasons, not just to become bigger endorsers, are really changing the business world. And I think Brady's one of those guys.
It is going to be interesting to see what happens with Tom Brady. I mean, I'm paying real close attention to this one because it does feel like it could be more than just a match. Now, this past week, we should mention, since you and I have recorded, they've released season 3 of WWE Unreal. I'll admit I haven't had a chance to dig through all the episodes. I did see episode 1. Have you had a chance to check out any of this season of Unreal? And if so, what did you think?
I have not. I have not had a chance to check it out. Look, I'm basically against Unreal. I'm an old school guy, but I'm not so set against it that I think that they shouldn't do it. I mean, they're doing something right. And so I'm not going to be the old guy who shakes his fist at the clouds and yells, "Get off my lawn, kids." They're doing something right. They're selling out football stadiums back-to-back nights. I think it's too inside, but they're doing something right. And maybe fans, want to see all this. See, I'm different, Conrad. I'm different, not only just the old kayfabe type guy, but I don't want to see the insides to Game of Thrones or anything else. How do the dragons work? How does all this, how they show the guy getting his head cut off? I don't care. I just want to be entertained. But fans want this, and because of this, this first one was nominated for an award, and they're doing incredible business. They're doing something right.
I echo what you're saying. I totally enjoy the show, and I appreciate seeing, and learning more. Like, we as wrestling fans have an insatiable appetite for wrestling, which is why you're listening to this podcast. And thank you for doing that, by the way. So I get it, but I also wonder hey, are we doing that at to our own detriment? Does it limit your ability to create new stars? And what I mean is, let's take, for instance, and it all comes down to the edit, but in season 2, we saw LA Knight backstage talking to Hunter, and it didn't go well. And there were mistakes made. And I know LA Knight has a different version of events that night that he doesn't want to talk about now because there's no upside. Because how do you do that if you want to defend yourself without bearing the company? It puts him kind of in an impossible situation. So blurring the lines of what's real and what's a character is really what Unreal is all about. But I'm wondering, does it allow you to see these guys as superstars? Or are you reminded, oh, well, Braun is not really a murderer. He's not really an insane madman psycho. He likes to bass fish. He's a bass fisherman. It makes him very relatable. And so I know that, like, for someone like my mom, she probably thinks, hey, that's cool. I get to see the real story behind the guy. But I know if I'm trying to get lost in the character, for instance, I want to believe in my head, and I know this isn't true, that James Gandolfini is Tony Soprano and Tony Soprano is James Gandolfini. But Tony cheated on his wife and was a mob boss and drove an Escalade. James Gandolfini drove a Prius and was married to a black lady. Like, that's a totally different person. It was a character, but we wanted to believe that that's Tony Soprano. And I think when you see this, it kind of takes you out of it. And to your point, if they would have done this with the Sopranos midstream, I don't know that people would have had the fanfare for Tony Soprano, the character, because we want to believe. And when you humanize them, it just, I don't know, it feels different. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with that. And I don't want to be relatable when I'm a character. I don't want to be relatable at all. I mean, I went to a couple of years, last year, I went down to Nashville Stadium, and my buddy had some tickets there. He had almost front row tickets. You know, they weren't, cost a fortune. And I'm sitting there and I'm watching Mookie Betts and Freeman bat. And I'm just like, oh my God, man, this is unbelievable. I mean, Mookie Betts is not relatable to me. That's why I pay to see him, because I can't do what he does. I'd pay to watch Aaron Judge. I'd pay to watch Ohtani. I can't do what they do. And so they're not relatable to me as far as, you know, one of us. I don't want to pay to see somebody that's one of us. I mean, I love sports. I can't do what Tom Brady does. That's why I would pay to see him play. And I think the same thing about wrestling. You know, if you just make it, oh, he's just one of us, I think that's a death knell. I think you're dead at that point, because people aren't going to pay for that. You know, now, can you create bigger stars out of this? Yeah, possibly. You know, that could be the upside. I think a lot of this still can be worked, and it probably is. But do I want a character that I know through and through? No, because I'm not going to watch it. You know, I don't care. I don't care who Jon Snow really is. I could care less that his background or where he came from or I just want to watch him. I want to watch him, and I want to see him on the North Wall defending stuff. I want to see dragons come, and I want to see all this crazy stuff that's going to happen. I want to get lost in that. And when I watch sports, I don't want to see somebody that's like me. I don't want to say, oh, I could do that. You know, I think that's where some people want to position themselves. I say people, some wrestlers want to position that. Oh, I'm one of you. I'm a fan like you. I don't pay money to see somebody like me. I pay money to see somebody hit a 450-foot home run because I can't do that. I think it's freaking awesome that they do that. Would I pay to see Usain Bolt run? Oh my God. I watched damn near every one of his races on television and on video. I can't do that. That impresses the hell out of me. So yeah, I think there is a potential downside to this. Now, can you still work it and make them bigger stars? Yeah, I think you probably can.
Yeah, I think you can too. I just think it's going to be different then. Like if you're a longtime WWE fan or specifically a CM Punk fan, then you knew he was going to be a star when he was cutting promos in Ring of Honor. And you knew that he was going to make it. It was just a matter of time. But then when he tried his hand outside of the tent of WWE, he fought in the UFC. And what a leap that is to not have fought all this time and be a pro wrestler and not have that real amateur background, but have a passion for it. And to put yourself out there and really try something. But because you're a celebrity, you're not trying something on a local regional show. You're trying something with millions of people watching it. And we know the results of those fights. And I know a lot of people in the business at the time were probably thinking, boy, you just killed your aura. And I know if you go back to like the Bill Watts era, I think Bill Watts used to have a rule. Hey, if you lose a bar fight, you're fired. You can't lose to one of the fans or one of the marks, as they said, or whatever it may be. I think we want to believe. But even like examples like this past weekend at Fanatics, to your point, I couldn't believe there were WWE superstars competing, even if they were having fun in some of these various events. You mentioned Tom Brady when he was on the Boxer machine. He did that with Justin Bieber and Cody Rhodes. And I can't believe this is real, but Tom Brady had the highest punch of all of them. Now, does that really mean that he could beat up Cody Rhodes in a fight? No, that's absurd. But I just think framing it that way, like, I don't know, like when John Cena saw the bag and it was his turn to punch, he threw working punches, never actually touched it, and moved on. But there was a little bit of discourse of, hey, did Justin Bieber punch harder than Cody? And part of me was like, oh, guys, it's not 1985. What does it matter? But people were thinking about it. And they had, Roman Reigns trying to shoot jump shot threes, and maybe they didn't all go in, or Cody was trying to kick a field goal and it didn't go in. And I don't know. I think I want to believe that these guys are the superior athletes and they could kick everybody's ass and everything. As a little kid, I loved when Mr. Perfect would throw a pass to himself. I know it's stupid, but it was awesome when I was a kid, and I wanted to believe, John.
Yeah, and it's a couple things. It's the airport test. It's also just the physical test. When I used to watch Brock Lesnar, now he is a freak. There's nobody like Brock. But I would watch Brock walking into an arena when I was doing commentary, and everything would change because he's so different and he's so imposing as a human being. Everything would change. And I think you lose that sometimes when guys get in the business and they don't look that much different from the fans. And you sit there and say, well, and the fans say, oh, like he's like one of us. Again, I don't want to pay money to see one of us. So yeah, I think there's a downside risk to some of this. I think, when you have a chance to do something like that, you work it, or you figure out what you can or can't do. And again, it's, I don't know the answer as far as, guys today want to build a platform so badly that I think sometimes they give too much. And I think when they give too much, I think fans feel like they know you. And when I think fans feel like they know you, they're not going to pay to see somebody they know. I'm not going to pay to see my neighbor, unless my neighbor is LeBron James or somebody. I'm not going to pay to see my neighbor if I think I'm just kind of like him and that guy goes out there and I can see him all the time. If I feel like they're one of me, to me, I think it's detrimental.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I don't know that the old way of doing things is ever coming back. I do want to ask a little bit more about Unreal, though. There's one particular topic that everybody's buzzing about, and I think it was in episode 1 of Unreal, and it's specifically about Triple H talking about the Steiner name. And I think people are offended by this. I don't know if they should be. I want your 2 cents. How do you feel about this? Quote, smart, young, hungry, driven, coachable, athletically has all the gifts. The challenge for Braun is don't become just the next Steiner. You have an opportunity to be so much more. Much like The Rock was so much bigger than Rocky Johnson, much like Roman Reigns is so much bigger than Sika, those talent didn't lean on the past. They, in their own way, paid tribute to it while creating their own lane. You really don't want to be the next Steiner. You want to be the first Braun Breaker. One of the things that I hate doing, but it's sort of inevitable, is when you say like, oh, this guy's the future, it's like the kiss of death. It's so hard to measure up to that, but the great ones find a way. Now, people are taking this like it's a slight against Rick and Scott. And I know that there are 2 real glaring examples of Cody Rhodes and Charlotte Flair who have embraced their family legacy and switched it up a little bit. They're not doing a carbon copy of what their parents did, but they are keeping that legacy alive. We've got woos and figure 8s and struts and robes, and not the American dream, but the American nightmare. Like, all the similarities are there. But I feel like for whatever reason, people are immediately saying, oh, this is because Triple H had heat with Scott Steiner. And it's like, oh, gosh, that was so long ago. Talk to me creatively. The creative is subjective, as our pal Jeff Jarrett says. There's no such thing as, right or wrong creative. You like what you like. Are you on board with Triple H saying, hey, I don't think he should be the next Steiner, because as a fan, I like the community feel of wrestling. Like, I love that there's a Vikingo and a El Hijo de Vikingo. It's Vikingo and the son of Vikingo. Like, I think that's cool. That's a part of wrestling. But I understand too that sometimes it can set people up for not the best success. Respectfully, my brother-in-law didn't enjoy the biggest success as David Flair. What would happen with Charlotte Flair is a totally different story. So there's no right or wrong answer here, John. I just want to set the table for you that way. What do you think about the words here from Hunter about Braun?
Yeah, I don't see it as a slight to Rick and Scott at all. Look, Rick and Scott were, when I tell those guys were the best tag team in the world in the early 90s, and nobody was close, man. Those guys were so freaking good. People don't understand how great Rick and Scott were, man. Those guys were, God almighty. All this stuff that a lot of these guys are doing today came from Scott. Scott used to do all that crazy stuff because he was so freaking strong. He was also safe, by the way. Now these guys are inventing all this stuff. A lot of that started with Scott. Scott would just pick guys up and just create things because he was so freaking strong. But I remember when Jimmy Snuka's Kid debuted, and Vince didn't want us to mention it all. There was Jimmy Snuka's Kid, and later we tried because he was trying to give something to him to give him some type of boost. But I can see that. I can see them saying that, you don't want to be the next anything. Nobody wants to be the next anything. I mean, the next anything's never as good. You don't want to be the next Hogan. You don't want to be the next Stone Cold. People always talk about that. We need the next this. There's never a next. Everybody that makes it to the top is different from what preceded them. And as far as the family name, I agree with Triple H here. I think that you have your own path. People know he's a Steiner. I mean, they're not hiding it. He just has a different name. And I don't think that's an issue. I think you do have a problem overcoming something that's a huge name. I think Charlotte Flair, that's hard to be Ric Flair's daughter. She's done it. Cody Rhodes, that's hard to be Dusty Rhodes' kid. He's done it, and he's done a great job of it. I think it's an easier path to not have that last name of a legend like the Steiners. And then you don't have to worry about overcoming. You just kind of create your own path. I think it's much harder. Now, can you do it? Yeah, absolutely. You can do it. But I think people know right now that he's a Steiner. So I don't think it's that big a deal. And I think what Triple H said is 100% correct. You want to have him forge his own path. And I think the way to do it, one of the ways to do it certainly is to change the name.
Well, something that you're going to be changing the name of is your favorite gum. Recently I've been talking and learning a little bit more about the importance of dental health, and my business partner on the mortgage side of my world, he had a tooth crack on him, and it all of a sudden made me pucker a little bit. It turns out a ton of what we eat and drink, like coffee, tea, these acidic foods, well, man, it can do long-term damage to your teeth. So I've started leveling up my chewing gum routine with Larinco. This is a chewing gum that actually makes your teeth stronger every time you use it. Larinco is better for you chewing gum that uses the same mineral that your teeth are made of to support daily enamel health. Larinco uses nanohydroxyapatite. That's the mineral that your enamel is actually made of to strengthen your enamel and repair the damage. It comes in tons of flavors, and they have a really great fluoride-free toothpaste as well. Larinco has sent JBL and I the gum. We're both huge fans, and it not only tastes great and lasts long, but Larinco also gives you a brighter smile. It's plastic-free, and whenever I use it after a meal, the gum will really get the saliva flowing to help me rinse away the debris. I've even noticed that my teeth feel like they're less sensitive to hot or cold. It just feels good knowing that I'm actually helping my teeth stay strong and healthy every time I use it. It's a totally effortless way to make sure you're taking the best care of your teeth possible. And right now, Larinco is offering our listeners up to 50% off at buylarine.com/wrestle. That's buylarine.com/wrestle for up to 50% off. That's BUY Larine, LARINE.com/wrestle for up to 50% off. And John, check this out. This is Larinco. I love the pouch. It comes in like this, and it's just cardboard. And look, you take this part off right here, and check this out. I'm going to pour one out. It looks unlike any other gum I've ever had before. It's like a little cube. Man, it'll really get the saliva going. You can feel the difference. You can taste the difference. You're going to love Larinco. But everybody in my office has started to get familiar with that phrase because I'm keeping these on me. I keep it in the car. I keep it in my desk. And every now and again, if you may see in my left pocket, I keep that thing on me. You should too. Check out Larinco. It's buylorine.com/wrestle. Get up to 50% off. Larinco's good stuff, man. Let's talk a little bit about, and I don't know if you saw this or not, but there's some big news out of a Batista interview. And this blew me away. You and I have done a podcast for several months now called Have More Money Now. It's available anywhere you enjoy podcasts. But Batista talked about how brutal the travel and the cost of that travel could be as a young person in WWE. And he talks about the money he was making. And he even says he wasn't really making money until he was the world champion in 2005. Quote, I can't speak for how it is now, but when I was there, you're just grinding. You're pulling your own weight. Most of the time, it's not only physically very difficult and mentally very difficult, but it's also expensive. When I was wrestling, they pretty much provided you with airfare, and that was it. Not food, not cars, not hotels, none of that. So my first few years of wrestling, I was broke until 2005 when I became the world champion and started making some money. I was still borrowing money from people. I was living in a tiny apartment when I was the world champion because I had just become world champion. I hadn't started making the money yet. I used to go to those check cashing places and get like a $300 loan, and then you'd come back, pay it, and borrow another $300 and do that week after week. Around 2005 is when I didn't have to do that anymore, and I started to make money. But until then, I was grinding. And I know a lot of people are going to see that and say, boy, that's terrible. I would say I'm really glad that the business has evolved and it's much, much better and pays much, much better. And the game has been up and people are making a lot of money. But this is also showing, I think, the non-glamorous side of being a wrestler. Because I think a lot of people listening to this assume, well, he wrestles on TV. He's got to be a multimillionaire. He's got the best life ever. In reality, it's a job, and these guys are doing their best to move up the ladder and make some more money, but they're having to grind it out, just like you would in the entertainment biz. If you're a musician, you're not going to be staying at a Marriott in every town you go. You're going to be loaded up in a van. You're going to be sleeping on the floor. You're going to get as many people you can in a single room. I don't think people see that side of wrestling, but that's part of it. Now, people would argue, but it shouldn't be that way with WWE, and I hear you, and it's not anymore. But I love this story and the transparency from Batista because people usually play that stuff sort of close to the vest. What do you think of Batista's comments?
I agree with them. Look, it was tough back then. And, I remember the first year I was with WWE, I think I've said that before on here, $76,000 or $77,000, I think was what I made. I worked every single live event and every pay-per-view. And that's what I made. I mean, it was 250, 300 nights on the year on the road a year, and we were in a hotel every single night. You think about it not being glamorous. There's nothing glamorous about what we did. We went out all the time back then. We were younger and, could go out and not sleep. But, you've been to Detroit 50 times, eventually it loses the appeal of, hey, you're in Detroit this week. Nothing against Detroit, nothing against Cleveland or Dallas or LA or anywhere else. But you just got where you're sick of getting on planes. I've got, I think right now, something like 6.4 million miles on American Airlines. I'm a million miler with Delta also. I mean, I've flown my entire life. And when you're flying like that, and Dave's right, they didn't pay for cars, didn't pay for hotels, except for like big pay-per-views and things like that. Occasionally they had paid for your hotel at some big pay-per-views. But for the most part, they didn't. They just got you there. Then you got your own rent a car. We had 4 people to a car. I mean, we had me and Dutch and Tom Prichard and Glenn Jacobs, Al Snow. Those were the guys that kind of, Barry Horowitz guys would kind of rotate. We'd have, 4 people in the car and a full-size car. We're not talking about a Cadillac. We're talking about a full-size car. And we'd have 3 or 4 people to a hotel room at that time. I mean, we were on TV. People thought we were these huge stars, and I guess a lot of us were. Or some of us were, but we're sitting there, 4 people to a red roof room. It's like we'd split the bed, the box springs, and the top, and one making 4 beds out of it. Yeah, it was it, you know, we knew what we were doing as far as where we wanted to be, but yeah, we struggled. It wasn't glamorous. It was tough. It was work. It was really hard work. Dave's 100% right in what he writes.
I think it's interesting that so many people from the outside would just assume that, hey, you guys are living the life of Riley, as my mom would say, but that is not the case. I mean, you are trying to, because I mean, what's the old cliche? It's not what you make, but what you save. Yeah. And so on the road, you're trying to, you know, save as much money as you can, but it's very expensive, especially now. Like go price a flight right now. It is very expensive. You're awfully lucky to have 6 million air miles. Let's talk a little bit about where WWE's business is right now with regards to viewership. I don't know if you've seen, but Netflix recently released some numbers, and this is interesting because usually these streaming services, John, they never reveal any numbers. You just kind of have to guess, and you don't really ever know. But Netflix revealed what some of the PLEs have done this year in 2026. The Royal Rumble did 3.1 million views. Elimination Chamber did 1.9 million views. WrestleMania Night 1 did 2.7 million views. WrestleMania Night 2 did 3 million views. Backlash did 1.4 million views. Clash in Italy did 1.6, and Night of the Champions did 1 million. Now, the reason I bring this up, of course, is we don't know what the domestic numbers are because those were all on ESPN. But internationally, the PLEs are seen on Netflix. A lot of in Europe, I don't know that ESPN is as popular as it is here in America, for instance, but seeing these global numbers, I know that when some people saw them, they were shocked at how low they were. I think people forget these shows were on freaking ESPN here domestically. 3.1 million international views for the Royal Rumble feels gigantic to me, John.
It's huge. Absolutely huge. Look at that. 1.6 was, I think, the Night in Italy is what you said, something like that.
Yep.
You know, back in the day, Conrad, we couldn't, I say back in the day, you know, 20, 30 years ago, we could not run pay-per-views overseas, except maybe sometimes in the UK. Occasionally you might go as far as Germany because of the time change. And we're so bound by North American, specifically US and Canada, buy rates. And that was a big funding of our company and of us. But now because of streaming, you're able to have PLEs in Italy or anywhere in the world. And you have 1.6 million people outside the United States watching this. I mean, that's how huge it has become because of this streaming. And because of streaming, you're able to do things in different parts of the world that were not available to us. You know, you couldn't run a pay-per-view in certain parts of the world because the time change was so drastic that you wouldn't make much money in North America. And I say North America, not specifically not Mexico, mainly US and Canada, as far as the North American countries that were big on the pay-per-views. But you couldn't run certain countries overseas because of the time change. And now it doesn't matter. I mean, it's really opened up the entire world. And I think these numbers are fantastic. I don't know what they expected. I know what we used to do. And this absolutely blows it away. I don't know what the numbers are in ESPN. I mean, I've been in some bars, sports bars, when the ESPN preview comes on, and everybody in the bar is sitting there watching it. I mean, sitting there watching them, and there's sports on as well. And here's sports bars, and people are watching the wrestling. I was in a sports bar recently, and right down the road from me, right here, and I was sitting there, and the WWE preview show comes on, and one of the guys comes in just to watch it, just to watch the ESPN show. And he says, "Hey, would you change that to ESPN? There's wrestling on." Well, when you changed it, now the entire bar was sitting there. I was sitting there watching just to see what the reaction would be. Everybody there turns and starts watching the wrestling. Now it's a Saturday afternoon or whatever it is. There's all kinds of sports on and stuff. Nobody cares about anything but the wrestling. I mean, what they're doing now because of the streaming and the access to people that has it because of this. And by the way, you don't have to audit 1 million different countries when it's streaming. You know, we used to have to audit all these foreign countries because we had different TV contracts. Well, and there are some of them that would steal you blind. We had to audit all this. So that's a lot of work to have to do with that. Now, all of a sudden, you just press a button, you're on Netflix or whatever you are overseas, and it's done. And the money's in your pocket. You don't have to worry about that. It's so much better than what we used to have.
I am curious. I know that you know a thing or two about stocks, and you can hear more about that on our podcast, Have More Money Now. We'll link it in the description for today's show. But I wanted to ask you about Netflix. Over the last year, we've seen a lot of chatter. I know they had an earnings report recently where they did not meet their expectation. Over the last year, it looks like Netflix stock is down over 41%. And I know that for years and years, they've sort of been what every streaming service wanted to be. A lot of these other streaming services, they operated at a loss because everyone thought, well, eventually we'll get it big enough, we can get to that profitability, not like Netflix. But when we're seeing Netflix down over 40% in a year, is this a time to buy the dip? Or have you read anything about the Netflix stock price? What is the story there in your opinion?
Yeah, it's just a matter of competition is what it is with Netflix. And yeah, I would absolutely buy the dip. I remember back in the 90s when Rupert Murdoch bought into the NFL rights, people said he overpaid. It's going to be a disaster. What he showed was he built Fox off those NFL rights, also off baseball. People thought he overpaid significantly. Now you're seeing Netflix and they're doing a great job with this, by the way, getting to all type of live sports. So you're seeing Paramount get into that. You're seeing all the streaming services, Amazon, Prime, all of them are getting into this, and for a very good reason. You know, that's why these TV rights are going through the freaking roof. Why WWE is going through the roof, because everybody wants this live content. You know, content that are shows, you can watch that anytime. Live content, you can watch it later, but it really loses the appeal. You want to watch it live, especially when it's sports. And I think Netflix is doing a great job with all the sports that they're bringing in. They're doing a great job with WWE. I think Netflix is a great stock to own going forward.
Yeah, I agree. Long term, I think Netflix is going to be just fine. It is interesting, though, when you see TKO stock down and Netflix stock down. I don't know if that says more about their business or more about just the economy at large. Part of a larger conversation. Check us out over at Have More Money Now if you want to know more about the financial markets. Let's talk a little bit about something that I think is interesting from AJ Styles. You've talked a little bit about the mentality and the mindset that a wrestler has to have, and we all know that AJ Styles, former world champion, certified Hall of Famer. I mean, what hasn't he done? A world champion in TNA, a world champion in New Japan, a world champion in WWE. He did it all. But he's got a podcast, which may or may not be. I mean, I just call it to my friends, it's the AJ Styles Show. But I think the name of the show was Phenomenally Retro is the name of his podcast. You can check it out on YouTube or anywhere you enjoy podcasts. But here's the thing that AJ said that really caught me off guard. My biggest fear was that I would be asked, well, would I be released in some way? Other people think, you're AJ Styles. Why would you even think that way? Well, because I don't see myself the way that you see me. And so that was always my biggest fear, is that they would release me. For me, I'd be embarrassed. That being like, quote, oh, he's not good enough to do his job, so he's worth losing, end quote. I was always worried about that. Even as good as the career went, there was the time where I wasn't doing that much at all with anything. I think this is interesting. This makes him very human. I appreciate that he's sharing this now. We all view him as, you know, the face that runs the place, as him and John Cena once said, the tippy top guy. I mean, who comes in and makes a splash like that at the Rumble and is immediately thrust into the main events and winning world titles? Like, he overcame it all and cemented his legacy as one of the all-time greats, a more modern iteration of a Shawn Michaels, say. But he's even worried about getting released. Is that just, I don't mean this to sound dismissive, is that wrestler brain? Is that normal? Is that something everyone thinks in the biz?
I think that's a competitor brain. I think that's a guy that always is striving to be the best at what he is, and he always has some doubts. Guys that have doubts like that are usually the guys that are your top guys. You know, the biggest compliment I could give to AJ Styles was he was this generation Shawn Michaels. I used to say it all the time on commentary for him, and I agree. I really thought that wasn't just me saying something just to put him over. I was putting him over, but there was something that I meant. I just never saw him have a bad match. I mean, he was just amazing at what he did. And I remember when he came in, me and Michael Cole got in trouble because we had all his stats. And he was surprised, I think, at the Royal Rumble or something like that. And Vince was like, why would you know all his stats? You know, because to Vince, it didn't exist because it wasn't in WWE, you know. But I was like, Vince, if Aaron Judge came over and I'm at Cincinnati Reds and he came over all of a sudden a surprise, I would know who this guy is. You know, and so we defended ourselves, but it didn't work very well. But it was Vince got on me and Michael both because we had he thought we had too many stats for him because we were excited to see him come in.
Well, I'm excited to see what's coming in for these free agents. I don't know if you've seen that, but the handful of talent who were released, it looks like their free agency window is here. I guess those 90 days are expiring, and I wanted to run through some of the names. We've got Kerry Sane, Alistair Black, Zelina Vega, Uncle Howdy or Bo Dallas, whatever you want to call him. Nikki Cross, Dexter Loomis, he recently won a bodybuilding competition. Eric Rowan, we know him as Redbeard. Joe Gacy, Santos Escobar, who had a pretty hot take on social media this week. Chris Sabin, Alex Shelley, Zoe Stark, a lot of really, really talented people. Of course, anytime somebody gets the release from WWE, immediately everyone runs to, are they going to AEW? Are they going to TNA? Are they doing something else? What would you do if you found yourself on this list? Because I do think that there's a saying in sports and in business, hell, just in life, timing is everything. And if you see a whole bunch of people show up somewhere at the exact same time, I don't know if that makes as meaningful of a difference, but I don't know how to think like a wrestler. So chat me up. If you were on this list, what would your agenda be now that you and everybody else is a free agent?
I've got a hat. One of my hats up here is from Dexter Loomis. He chopped it in half with an axe or something. I worked with Dexter some when I was doing something, I think with Baron Corbin or something. I think it was. I like Dexter. Dexter's a good guy. All these people are good guys. Zelina's a good friend. I like all these guys. Santana, same thing. I tell you what I would do is I would not try to get some guys want to be underneath the tent and be protected and be adopted essentially. And you'll find out pretty quick which one of these are like that. They want to have a contract. Some guys are like, you know what, screw you. I'm going to make a name for myself and you're going to pay me to go somewhere. And that's what I would do, at least would try to do. I think they should go out and start working as many different places as they can. Go to Japan, go to Mexico, go to Europe, work all these independents, try to create a name for yourself, create something different, some new iteration of you, whatever that is. I would do that and figure out and draw some money, go out there and create a name for yourself. And then all of a sudden there's demand for you. Look at, everybody uses Cody Rhodes as an example, but that's obviously a terrific example. So was Brock. You leave and turn down guaranteed money. Now these guys may have been cut. I think they were cut. They didn't leave by their own volition, but same thing works. Go out there and create a name for yourself. Don't try to go right away somewhere else. Create a name for yourself. And then you can start putting out feelers to see where you want to go. There are very few top guys in the world today or anytime that can draw money. And if you can go out there and draw money, you are one of one in a lot of places. And you're going to be picked up because that's rare. And they need new talent. Look at WWE. They've got 1,000 hours a week of content they have to put in. I'm exaggerating, but they've got, God almighty, they've got so much content they've got to put in. If you go out there and create a name for yourself, they're going to come calling you. And so that's my advice to these guys.
It is going to be interesting to see how they shake out. And I know we're all pulling for them. And I hate to be this guy, but it does make me wonder how many of these people just decide, hey, I think I'm done with wrestling. Like I tried it and I'm going to move on to something else. I know this sounds like a terrible question to ask, but I'm just going to ask it. I know it's a personal choice, but how do you make the decision? And I know you never walked away until, you felt like physically, hey, this isn't viable for me anymore. But a lot of guys, they try it and maybe they're disappointed. I mean, I've heard a lot of people say that, wrestling's going to break your heart. Wrestling's never going to love you the way you love it. That sort of relationship between the performers and the industry itself. When is the right time? How do you know it's the right time? Is there a way?
I remember the first time I made $100 for a match. I was in Abilene, Texas, my old college town where I was born, actually. I grew up in Sweetwater, born in Abilene. And one of the old trainers from my old college go, when are you going to give up on this stupid wrestling? And I thought, man, I'm making $100 a night. It was my first time to ever make that. And I was so excited about it. I thought, man, I'm rich. I finally made it. I was working. I got $3 one time. So, it was something. I'd work 7 nights a week and I knew what I wanted to do. As they say, failure is not an option. And that's how you've got to be in this business to make it. You know, I always thought I was going to make it. I took the job in Europe, went over there for 2 years. Now, I loved every second of it. It was a wonderful territory, but I lived in a 16-foot by 6-foot trailer, you know, pretty small, without air conditioning. We had a little heater, but I'd still get ice on the inside of the walls, you know, during the cold northern Germans winter, you know, and it wrestled every single night, double shots on the weekend, you know, and I was doing okay in Europe, but still it was a tough lifestyle. A lot of people would not want to do that. And I did that for 2 years because I knew where I wanted to go. And I went through all kinds of problems. You know, I blew up my knee one time in Europe. I had to get it fixed. I had to, you know, man, is wrestling over for me or not? I didn't think it was, and it wasn't. You know, to these guys, if this is your dream, it's worth following, because I promise you, 15 years from now, you're not going to be able to do it. Now, I say you're not going to be able to do it. You're not going to be able to do it if you take off now. You know, you might still be wrestling 15 years. Physically, you might be able to do it. But if you take off now and you decide 10 years from now or 15 years, I'd like to give that a try again. Find out. I mean, if it really is your dream, find out. Go all in. Put all your chips on the table and see if you can make it. And if you can't, so what? You tried. But you will regret it the rest of your life. If this really is a dream of yours, you will regret the rest of your life if you walk away now when you still have an opportunity to make it.
I hope they follow their dream. I hope they do exactly what they want to do. And I know that sometimes, you know, we're all trying to figure out, hey, can I afford to do that? And in order to do that, you got to be a good money manager. That's why I'm a big believer in Cash App. Let's start some good habits early on. For all those parents out there with teenagers, we know that it's already tough keeping a million different things under control. But Cash App is here to help you make sure your teen's money and their spending isn't adding to that craziness. Here's what I want you to know. You get parental oversight and no hidden fees. You can't beat that. You see, with the Cash App card it's available to teens that are age 13 to 17. Now, they have to have sponsorship by an eligible parent or guardian. That's you, of course. But every transaction triggers a real-time notification for you to see. So what it does is it empowers your teen to practice independence, but it still gives you the peace of mind of making sure they're keeping their spending on track. You can also manage everything from your own Cash App account without having to switch between the two, so you can stay on top of everything. And no parent wants unnecessary surprises. So here's what you need to know about Cash App. No monthly fees, no minimum balance requirements, no hidden charges when you're sending or receiving money. And with the Cash App card, you and your teen's balances are going to receive 24/7 fraud monitoring. And if the card ever gets lost, you have the ability to lock their card right from your phone in just one tap. Cash App is a real life game changer for young people. It's never too early to start saving with your kids and teaching them how to save. You want to show them how to get those small steps started today to build those really stronger habits tomorrow. Cash App is even offering teens interest on their savings so they can grow their money faster. It's all under your guidance. You once again just sponsor your teen on Cash App and set them up today. Again, I can't say it any more plainly. No hidden fees, no monthly fees, no minimum account balances. Teens can start with as little as $1 and grow from there without paying anything extra. I think this is an absolute home run for parents and for young people. Do this together. The new Cash App customers can earn $10 if they use the code FAMILY10 in their profile at sign up, and then just send $5 to a friend within 14 days. Terms apply, but it's worth repeating. New Cash App customers can earn $10 if they use the code FAMILY10, that's FAMILY10 in their profile at sign up, and then send $5 to a friend within 14 days. Terms apply. Cash App is a financial services platform, not a bank. Banking services provided by Cash App's bank partners. Prepaid debit cards issued by Sutton Bank, member FDIC. Cash App Visa Debit Flex cards issued by Sutton Bank, member FDIC, and the Bancorp NA pursuant to a license from Visa USA Inc. See terms and conditions for the Sutton prepaid card, the Sutton Debit Flex card, and the Bancorp Debit Flex card. Savings provided by Cash App, a Block Inc. brand. Visit cash.app/legal/podcast for full disclosures. All right, John, it's time for my favorite segment on the show. I love all things memorabilia and collectibles. And each and every week we do a segment here called Wrestle Worth. And maybe you've got something in your man cave or in your home office and you wonder to yourself, I wonder what that's worth. Well, send us your item, send us the pictures, send us the story, and we'll highlight it here on the program. It's wrestleworth@gmail.com. Of course, we couldn't do it without our resident expert. Welcome him in, your friend and mine from Heritage Auctions, our main man, Tony. Tony, how are you, man?
Great. I'm in Chicago, just getting ready for the National Sports Convention. So we've got a lot of really cool belts, a lot of wrestling memorabilia, and we're very excited for next week.
Well, we're excited that the National is here, and it won't be long before the Platinum Night auction for Heritage Auctions is here, and that's going on right now. You can go ahead and get registered at ha.com. We've got about a month before the whole kit and caboodle comes to a finish. So you can go ahead and register now, peep out some items, maybe follow them along, and then get really hot and heavy in the action here in 3.5 weeks or so. But you've got something really, really special for us today. I know that it feels like every single month we're talking about another Andre the Giant collectible, but you've got something cool in store today.
Yeah, this one here, when it came across my desk to write, really jumped out at me. It's Jean Ferret, obviously Andre, known as Jean Ferret in the early days when he was in Grand Prix Wrestling. And this one here, when I saw it, I almost couldn't believe it. It's the nicest Jean Ferret that I've ever seen. Promotional photo from the Grand Prix days, early to mid 70s is when he was Jean Ferret. And there's obviously not a lot of Andre the Giant autographs out there in the first place. It's not that he was a mean guy. He just didn't want to be bothered. And as he got older, after the back surgery, he really wasn't that public all that much. I mean, he was public, but he didn't do a lot of autographs at that stage of his life. So anything you can find, Jean Ferret. I remember the days when this was a $5,000 to $7,500 photograph. Now it's more of a $15,000 to $20,000 autograph. And the reason behind it being a $20,000 autograph instead of $15,000, it's the nicest that I've ever seen. PSA graded this autograph an 8, and if you look at it, he put it in a great spot. And I mean, Andre could move really well, especially earlier in his career. I'm not saying he was a high flyer, but he could move really well, especially during this point. And anything beginning of somebody's career or the end of their career kind of takes on special meaning. And this one here, because it's so nice. It's the nicest. I've seen a handful of Jean Ferret photographs, but this one is by far the nicest one. And when you've got the nicest of anything, it's going to stand out. It's going to do well. It's 20,000 estimate on this one, and this is one that I don't think is ever going to be going down in value.
Yeah, Andre the Giant collectibles are just crazy. I've seen a version of this before, and it's gone for a lot of cash. Somebody, the real Andre collector, is going to want this one. First of all, because of the condition, I think, and the idea that he signed his real name. I mean, this is, is there a baseball comparison to this? Is this like a Babe Ruth autograph? Is this like a Ty Cobb autograph? There's a baseball equivalent of Andre. What is it, Tony?
I would say it's Babe Ruth would be the closest thing to Andre. The only thing is Babe Ruth signed every autograph that was presented to him. He signed more than anybody else, but he transcends generations. So if there was one person, it would be Ruth. Maybe like a Lou Gehrig too, but that would be who it is, because like Hulk Hogan signed a lot through his signing career. Most guys did sign a lot. Andre didn't sign all that much, and he unfortunately passed away in early '93. So it's not like he was doing autograph shows. It's not like he was signing a lot. And toward probably his last 5 to 7 years, he didn't want to be bothered. He was probably in a lot of pain, and he just didn't do a lot of autographs. So that's what makes it so expensive. He's one of the guys everybody needs, and he's kind of like that Mount Rushmore guy too. He didn't sign a lot, and as far as wrestling autographs go, he's the number one by far.
Super cool. Check it out at ha.com. But you've also got another superstar. Speak of the devil. How about superstar Billy Graham? You've got something from the superstar going up at ha.com?
Yeah, we've got a really cool piece. It's actually the jacket he was wearing when he was inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame. And this one here, it's kind of screams superstar Billy Graham. It's got the sequins and all these buttons and everything, kind of a nice Western theme to it. But there's multiple photos of him wearing it. I think with the Dudley Boys, and there it is, with the Dudley Boys, with Triple H and Greg the Hammer Valentine, and it provides for an easy photo match. And there's a letter, linking this to him. When I wrote that jacket, it is a very, very heavy duty, heavy jacket. And anytime you can photo match something, that's going to help it tremendously. And the thing with Superstar Billy Graham is there's not a lot of his material out there. There's the rookie card, which people would get signed, but there's not a lot of his ring gear out there. And he's a guy that Hulk Hogan, Ric Flair, all these guys modeled themselves after him, took some of his shtick, as you could say, and ran with it. And he did put a great quote on the autograph as well. So, Superstar Billy Graham, going back generations, but is a guy that so many wrestlers patterned themselves after. And, he could cut a heck of a promo. And that one there is a really cool piece. And again, there's not much of this stuff out there. So cool, Superstar Billy Graham, especially when you can link it to the Hall of Fame induction.
I can't wait to see what this goes for. It is a truly iconic piece, especially if you're an old school fan and you love the history of pro wrestling. And if you love the history of pro wrestling, there's a little birdie that told me that coming up in the coming weeks, we're going to have something from the world class era that I've never seen before. And we're going to have something involving a Ric Flair robe, all that and more coming your way in the coming weeks. If you haven't already, go check out the Heritage Auction. It's live now. They're getting ready for their Platinum Night. It's August 22nd, but you can register today at ha.com. And what's cool about this particular series of auctions that you've got right now, Tony, is you've got things at a variety of different price points. You've got some really off the beaten path, cool collectibles like licensing applications from state athletic commissions where you see performers sign their real name. And it's just a peek into the business that I love. But you've also got like sunglasses from Jeff Jarrett. There's something for everybody and all budgets as well. Right, Tony?
Yeah, there is. We've got some broadsides coming up. We got WrestleMania 3 signed by Hogan. That'll be coming up in a future auction. And you're right. There's a lot of different things. You've got ticket stubs. You've got LJN wrestling figures. You've kind of got something for everybody. Of course, we have the ring gear, which everybody goes crazy for. But autographs, even Type 1 photos, original photos are coming up too. So a lot of variety. And that's what keeps it so fresh and so fun is it's not just one thing. It's kind of everything. So it's really developing now, and with SummerSlam coming up, I think, a lot of people are going to be looking for a lot of cool items, and we're excited to have Jeff Jarrett's collection, and it's going to be fun.
Well, check it out. Hit that button. It's ha.com. Tony, I can't thank you enough for all the time, and I will remind everybody listening to this, if you haven't already, send us pictures and stories of your item. It's wrestleworth@gmail.com. That's wrestleworth@gmail.com. Thanks for all the time, Tony. Hope you have fun at the National.
Thanks, guys. Have a good one. Take care.
Oh, thank you. Hey, real quick, want to take a time out and brag about our friends over at Mars Men. A lot of us start to realize, hey, I'm getting this dad bod rocking during summer, but I wish it wasn't like this. It feels like it used to be easier than it is now. And that's because as guys get older, man, we start to stop producing as much testosterone. You see, most men's testosterone levels start dropping in their early 30s. And when that happens, it becomes easier to gain fat, especially around your stomach. And here's what's the more frustrating part. The more body fat you gain, the more your body actually converts testosterone into estrogen. And that somehow makes it even easier to gain more fat. So it can become a really ugly, tough cycle. Mars Men is a natural supplement that's designed to help you support those healthy testosterone levels. You want to be able to turn your body's fat more efficiently into lean muscle. And that's what you're really after here. When your hormones are working the way they're supposed to, a lot of things can get done easier. I'm talking about workouts, yes, but just energy and even staying leaner. It's basically a way for you to help you get your old body back without running like you did years ago. There's no weird stimulants. There's no synthetic hormones, just all real natural ingredients and things that support healthy T levels, weight management, and exercise performance. The quality is also legit. It's made right here in the USA. Every batch is third-party tested. And I'm telling you, you're going to feel more consistent energy. You're going to feel stronger lifts. You're going to feel better focus. You're going to feel a more steady all-day sense of drive. You're going to have less cravings. You'll have better gym recovery. You're going to feel as good as you have since your 20s. I can't tell you how many guys I've told Mars Men about, and almost all of my friends in their 30s and 40s are feeling a major difference thanks to Mars Men. But here's what I love about Mars Men. Man, they put their money where their mouth is. There's a 90-day money-back guarantee. What's that mean for you? It means there's no risk. Worst case, you don't absolutely love it and you get your money back. But over 91% of users have reported higher energy levels. Thousands of guys are feeling incredible results. Just check out the reviews on the website and see for yourself. And right now, for a limited time, our listeners can get 50% off for life, plus free shipping and 3 free gifts at mengotomars.com. That's mengotomars.com for 50% off and 3 free gifts when you check out. After you purchase, they're going to ask you where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them we sent you. John, pretty crazy week this week. You know, we've talked a little bit about Unreal. We've talked a little bit about Vince McMahon. We've talked a little bit about what the Netflix numbers are. Something we haven't spent a lot of time talking about, though, is this week in wrestling history. And I wanted to take just a minute to do that because, and I can't believe this is real, 25 years ago, this week is when the Invasion pay-per-view happened. Now, this felt like an absolute dream come true for wrestling fans. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I would go to the grocery store with my mom and we'd stop at the newsstand and I'd see the cover of these Bill Apter mags, I guess we've called them in recent years, The Wrestler or Pro Wrestling Illustrated or whatever it may be. And then we see these fantasy bookings right there on the cover. You know, what if this guy wrestled this guy? What if it was Hulk Hogan and Ric Flair? Maybe a generation later, what if it was The Undertaker versus Sting? What if it was Bill Goldberg versus Stone Cold Steve Austin? We all thought about it. We all talked about it. But once the WWF bought WCW, we thought, well, maybe it's going to happen. But that happened in March. You fast forward a little bit, the Invasion angle starts. Here comes ECW, and now we've got a pay-per-view. So historically, July was like the fully loaded era. You know, you had fully loaded pay-per-views the month after King of the Ring and before SummerSlam. That was the July show. But based on this storyline, Vince pivoted, called it Invasion. And I've always thought the poster was a little weird, but I get it. We're talking about father versus son because in storyline, Shane McMahon is now the owner of WCW and he's battling his father for control. I don't know if that's the way I would have sold the Invasion pay-per-view, but who am I to criticize? It is the most purchased pay-per-view in WWE history outside of a WrestleMania. So if you set WrestleManias, which is its own brand unto itself, aside, this is the monster show, the monster pay-per-view. But when fans think back on this show about the possibilities, I think some fans are disappointed. We felt like this was going to be the beginning of the greatest storyline in history. We know it didn't exactly work out that way. What were you guys thinking in the moment 25 years ago this week at the Invasion pay-per-view?
You know, we were thinking that it was late. You know, you wish the Invasion had happened, you know, during a time where WCW was more relevant. You know, they'd gone out of business and been bought out by WWE. And, you know, you didn't get the guys at that point. I think that was the time that it should have been done. You know, but if you could have got Goldberg, if you could have got Hall and Nash, if you could have got Hogan at that point, you could have got Bischoff at that point. I think that was the time that it should have been done. Unfortunately, I think it was just a little bit too late. And, you know, we just WWE never did a good job of taking over other companies and not WWEing those companies until where it no longer became those companies.
It is interesting to look back on this and think this is the storyline that got away. I think of all the storylines that could have happened, and I know there's lots of armchair quarterbacking, this is the one that fans hesitate to the most, don't you think?
Yeah, I think so, because it was the wars were incredible. I mean, absolutely incredible. You know, WWE is losing. It's like a wrestling match. They're losing, and all of a sudden WWE makes this huge comeback. Then WWE buys out WCW. There was incredible time in people's lives. I mean, it was so big during the Attitude Era. Monday Night Football had talks. I don't know how serious they were, but they had talks about moving their product, Monday Night Football, to a different night because you had 2 live wrestling shows that were drawing massive ratings. I mean, nothing like that will ever be done, where you have a zero-sum game where it'll be like Saturday Night Live having another comedy show on CBS or somewhere else, and all of a sudden these 2 shows are competing against each other, taking shots at each other, and you realize one of them is going to go out of business and one of them is going to stay in business and become the one sole owner of that genre. That's what the Attitude Era was. And if you could have got at that point, if you could have got Goldberg, who was so freaking hot, you could have got Hall and Nash and Hogan and all of the great stars. The problem was when WCW got bought, so many of these great stars, you did get some of them. You got Booker and you got DDP and you got a bunch of stars. You just didn't get the guys that were the ones that started the entire NWO and the Attitude Era there, because they had contracts that prohibited them from doing it. Very few guys were like Booker going, hey, I want an opportunity, to hell with my contract. Most guys, justifiably so, said, I'm just going to take the money.
Let's talk a little bit about another time in history. I can't believe this is real. This is more in your day. We're going to go way back. How far back? How about 50 years ago? 5 days before Muhammad Ali and Antonio Inoki are going to square off in Tokyo, ABC's Evening News is going to introduce American viewers to Japanese wrestlers. And this is a pretty badass clip. Let's take a look.
On Japanese wrestling champion Antonio Inoki. The fight is a promoter's dream, with the question of who will win almost secondary to how he will win. Correspondent Irv Chapman has a report on Inoki and wrestling Japanese style.
Getting ready for an evening in the ring, a stable of wrestlers headed by the National Federation heavyweight champion Antonio Inoki. But these are not the highly stylized sumo wrestlers unique to Japan. This is old-fashioned grunt and groan. When the fans of all ages fill the arena, they do get a show with a uniquely Japanese twist. A series of matches pitting a lean and keen local boy against a foreigner, preferably blonde, fat, and nasty. Can Mantell from California is no test for Osamu Kido from Kawasaki, the next town down the pike from here. The masked man is also from someplace unnamed, far away. He calls himself simply Towering Inferno. Killer Karl Krupp is from Hanover, Germany. In the years after World War II, some American wrestlers turned up in Japan, and the matches were a tremendous hit. They gave the Japanese crowds a chance to vent their frustration with the U.S. occupation of this country. The occupation is long since over, but the scenario continues to serve the promoters well. The imperial-looking Inoki, 6'3", 247 pounds, faces Puerto Rican Victor Rivera. Inoki's wife is a Japanese television personality. Inoki was born in Yokohama. Later, his family emigrated to Brazil, where a Japanese wrestling champ discovered him and brought him back to Tokyo. Here in Japan, professional wrestling is the usual triumph of skill and sportsmanship, the manly art of self-defense, with the extra ingredients of international competition, the kind that fosters genuine understanding. This is Irv Chapman, ABC News, Tokyo.
I'll have a comment, but not on that, in a moment.
What do you think of that, John? Isn't that great? 50 years ago.
Yeah, how about Cronkite taking a shot at wrestling it? I thought it was great, and I thought it was what a great promo video. Even with the host taking a little shot at it at the end, but what a great promo video! It was Inoki was really changed wrestling, and Conrad, if you never saw the old Japanese style, man, they treated these young guys. It was subhuman how they treated these guys. I mean, these guys, to make it through the dojo there and to get out of it, you were a tough human being and a well-conditioned human being. That Japanese training was absolutely legendary. They put Briscoe on one of the cards, the American version of the card, the night that Inoki and Ali fought, because they weren't selling tickets.
Yeah, let's talk about this show in particular. This is the precursor for MMA in a weird way. It's boxer versus wrestler, and they go 15 rounds. And I know it had to be a little bit of a disappointment because we're going to see, Inoki on his back and he's kicking at Ali's legs. Ali is obviously struggling to land a meaningful punch because Inoki's on his back. So they go 15 rounds into a draw. I know it wasn't necessarily a critical success. I don't know how big of a financial success it was or wasn't, but it is interesting to think that this is a long time. I mean, this is 1976. It was billed as the War of the Worlds because you had East versus West and you had these two disciplines, but we're like nearly 20 years before the UFC here. This is really, really cool stuff. And I've always thought, even though it wasn't a critical success, how historical this was. I've got not one, but two posters from this event. And our buddy, our gimmick attorney, Mike Dawkins, he's got some slabbed tickets to the event. I mean, this is real wrestling history. And I know sometimes these ideas look great on paper, maybe not in execution, but look at the legendary icons involved, Inoki and Ali. And somewhere hanging around was a young Vince McMahon too, right?
Yeah, young Vince McMahon was one of the ones that was a big promoter on this. And I don't know why they wouldn't work this whole thing. Apparently, I guess when Ali got there, he found out it was a shoot. He thought it was a work. Ali had been working. He worked with Gorilla Monsoon. He did some other stuff, obviously later in WrestleMania. Ali was willing to work. And so obviously Inoki was too. I don't know why this thing turned into a shoot. That's horrible. And especially, it's so stupid when it looks good when you have the boxer with gloves on. It looks good, in the matchups, but what a terrible thing for the boxer. You can't grab the guy. You can't use your hands. You can't really fight him off with gloves on. I mean, it's pretty much an impossibility. It really favors the wrestler, but you watch it back, and I watched it about 6 months ago. And I mean, Inoki kicked the shit out of Ali. I mean, it wasn't, people talked about, remember the time that Inoki just laid on his back and kind of kicked at him. No, Inoki, man, he brutalized Ali's legs. I mean, Ali really had problems with his legs after this because of what Inoki did to him as far as the damage. I don't know why they wouldn't work it. I mean, it's crazy to me to let this thing, from what I understand, you might have a better insight, this thing turned into a shoot.
Well, there's no doubt about that. This did not go according to plan. I don't think it's what anybody wanted. And I don't think it went according to plan on Arsenio Hall. I want to fast forward to 1991. We'll go forward 15 years from 76 to 91. And it was on this week in 1991 where Hulk Hogan went and sat with Arsenio Hall. Let me give you some context of exactly what was going on. I think we all know that WrestleMania 6 was not the huge success with the Ultimate Warrior's champion afterwards. So they decided they're going to go back to Hulk Hogan. And they doubled down on the Iraq War and made Sergeant Slaughter an Iraqi sympathizer, thinking, hey, we got to get something to jumpstart the all-American hero Hulk Hogan. And WrestleMania 7 was just kind of flat. So here we are now with business sort of on the ropes. And all of a sudden we start to hear that there's rumor and innuendo of a potential steroid investigation that's going to be coming directly at Vince McMahon. And obviously, the way to get to Vince is to take down his top star, and that's Hulk Hogan. So these steroid accusations in the summer of 91 get to such a boil that they make the decision, let's send Hulk Hogan to the media to address this. But let's don't send him to 2020. Let's don't send him to prime time. Let's stay as far away from hard copy and a current affair as we can. Let's go to a friendly member of the media, someone who has hosted us when our guys in character before. Let's go to Arsenio Hall. But now, instead of there being the Macho Man or the Twin Towers and Slick, it's Hulk Hogan. And he's in street clothes, as much as Hogan could ever really be in street clothes, with his bandana like he likes it. And he's going to go on the program on July 16th, 1991. And he says, I trained for 20 years, 2 hours a day to look like I do. I'm not a steroid abuser, and I do not use steroids. Now, this is a direct about face from what he had spoken about with Vince McMahon, if you believe the rumor and innuendo. There's a fabulous book that came out earlier this year called Titan Shrinking, and you can see all about this moment in particular. But a lot of people would point to this singular decision that Hulk Hogan made to not just, quote unquote, tell the truth and be honest, and not spin, and just be honest and get in front of it, When he doesn't do that, boy, the rest of the media comes after him. It creates a shitstorm of public relations nightmare for WWE and for Hulk Hogan and for Vince McMahon. And most importantly, the Hulk Hogan Vince McMahon relationship. I don't know that it was ever the same after this Arsenio Hall appearance. I wanted to ask you, were you watching at the time, and what did you think of what Hulk said? And did you ever speak to either Hulk or Vince about this particular interview?
Yeah, I spoke to Vince about it. I never talked to Hulk about it. He and I were friends, but not friends where I would discuss something like that. We weren't that close of friends where we discussed something like that. I'm not sure, even if a close friend, I would have discussed it, because this was a stupid idea. I mean, it's dumb. I mean, you don't put yourself in that position where you have to lie, or you feel like you have to lie. You know, this whole Fed lawsuit with Vince. Think about this. Vince's guys, this is basically what the government alleged. Vince's guys took steroids. Therefore, Vince benefited from steroids. Therefore, Vince is subject to a federal investigation. The whole thing was ridiculous. I mean, absolutely ridiculous. That's one of the reasons Vince won this thing. You know, they're trying to put him in prison. And Hogan, to put himself in this position, this was a big part of, you know, the feds and everybody else turning on him. You know, do not put yourself in that position. Figure out a way out of it. If you don't want to admit that you've taken something, figure out a way to dodge the question. Hogan's a smart guy. Nothing's going to shock him. He can talk his way out of anything. Or figure out a way to tell the guy, don't ask me this question. It's that simple. You know, and the thing about it is, guys, for the most part, were getting steroids legally back then. You know, back then, Conrad, you could get them steroid from a doctor and get it filled at the local pharmacy. It wasn't that big a deal. Steroids were not that big a deal. People didn't know, you know, the long-term effects of them. People didn't know a lot of stuff about it. He could have been getting these things legally. Now, a lot of guys, you know, you can get them either legally or you don't go to the trouble. You just get them at your local gym. You know, gyms used to have price sheets. I've seen them, you know, price sheets that hand out to people. Here's what you buy Dianabol for. Here's what you buy Winstrol for. Here's what you bought Tez for. Enanthate, Cipinate, you know, all the different stuff that you could buy. You know, that's how nobody cared really back then. And, you know, one of the problems with a lot of this stuff that you talked about leading up to this was not the competitors, the people that were against Hogan. It wasn't Warrior. It wasn't Sarge. It was Hogan was kind of on the downside. You know, Hogan had his huge run, and as any runs happen, you know, he's kind of on the downside on this. And I thought this, you know, exacerbated the slide. It also exacerbated, you know, Sarge had massive heat as the Iraqi sympathizer. I mean, massive heat. It's just his nemesis, Hogan, was not quite the same Hogan that was the Hogan in WrestleMania 3. You know, Hogan later became the guy again, which is phenomenal in the Attitude Era with the NWO. But this was a Hogan that was not quite the same Hogan that he was in 86 and 87. And this was a terrible mistake to go on Arsenio's show and lie about this stuff. Figure out a way not to be asked the question.
Yeah, I mean, it was a different time. It was an interesting time. And I know that Hogan at different times, I think Dusty was famous for saying this, never letting the truth get in the way of a good story. And Hogan was so great at protecting his character and understanding the Hulk Hogan character. And I think it was impossible for him to admit, as Hulk Hogan, that Terry Bollea took steroids.
Yeah.
I get he wanted to protect it, but it does feel like a misstep. It feels like he loses some consumer confidence, and maybe it was a teachable moment. It's got to be near the top of the list of most regrettable moments of Hogan's career, don't you think?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. And the fact about it is, look, he's a good guy, and he protected his character. He wrote a book I know Vince was not very that thrilled with, because he wrote kind of the home version of the book. He kind of wrote it half in character. You know, he didn't tell a story about Hogan. Hogan was, you know, had a pretty wild life and a pretty incredible life, you know, and what he chose to tell was kind of be in character and build his character through the book, you know, and Vince didn't like that. I know. And when he does this interview, like, there's no big deal. If you don't want to admit that you're taking something, whether it's come from a doctor, whether you got it legally, illegal, whatever it is, make sure you don't get asked the question or figure out a way to dodge it. You don't have to answer it. You don't have to come out and say, I didn't do this. You know, I understand protecting your character. And maybe that was the right move to protect the character, but the way he did it by blatantly sitting there and saying, hey, I didn't do this, didn't do that, when the truth was something different, was a terrible mistake.
I love talking about the what ifs of that whole era. I know we're going to be talking about it, but next month will be the anniversary of the roast of Vince McMahon. And I think that's probably when the entire world realized, hey, there's a real problem here between Hulk Hogan and Vince McMahon. But I think you can draw it back to this particular interview. This is where we started to see some of the cracks appear in the foundation between Hulk Hogan and Vince McMahon. Hey, we appreciate.
Yeah, but Conrad, to finish, put a button on this. Hogan was a stand-up dude.
Yeah.
When he was testified, he could have thrown Vince under the bus. That's what they were expecting him to do. They thought Hogan was the one that was going to seal Vince's fate. Hogan stood up there, brother. He was a stand-up guy when he got called to the stand. Now, you don't think he lied about anything, but he sit there and made sure that he wasn't the one that put Vince by, he did whether he had animosity toward Vince or not. Hogan was a stand-up dude.
I think that the prosecution assumed that Hogan was going to say something along the lines of, yeah, Vince sold me the steroids, or Vince gave me the steroids, or Vince told me steroids were a condition of my continued employment. None of that was true, but I think the Hulkster probably allowed them to think that that's what he was going to say in exchange for him not facing any sort of charges. And then he got on the stand and told the truth, which was, hey, I used steroids, but I bought them with my own money. And He didn't make me do it, and he didn't make it a requirement. It is interesting, though, that it became villainized in this era. And I understand it from a sports standpoint, especially in combat sports. If we're talking about boxing, if we're talking about MMA, where one guy is going to punch another guy in the head as hard as he can with bad intentions, I understand we need to make sure that it's a level playing field. But if it's art and if it's entertainment, on some level, no disrespect to pro wrestlers, they're kind of like actors who do their own stunts.
Yeah.
And by God, pop in a DVD of The Expendables. Are you telling me Sylvester Stallone ain't gassed to the gills? What are we talking about? He's not hitting people for real. It's a show. What does it matter in wrestling, right?
Yeah, 100% agree. And you look at the deaths in wrestling, they weren't from steroids. Look, I'm not defending steroids. I'm glad they test. And one reason I'm glad they test now is you don't have to take them. Before, if everybody else is taking them, you pretty much are compelled that, unless you can just look that way as, naturally, which is pretty unlikely, you have to take them. And they took that off the table. So I really enjoyed that. I liked when they test, because now you weren't compelled to do anything like that. But the deaths in wrestling weren't steroids. They were pills, and they didn't realize that at the time. And that was a problem. They banned pills for a while or banned weed for a while, and everybody got on pills. Weed was the one thing that was fine. We find out through history. They had it completely backwards, but that was wrong with the society's knowledge, not wrestling's knowledge. Thought, hey, we got to clean up the sport. Let's get rid of the steroids. Steroids weren't the big issue. It was the pain pills. The pain pills were what killing people and what making people act like fools. Now, other stuff, the cocaine and all that stuff, guys don't need to be doing that. I get all that. But the stuff that's killing the people were the pain pills. And that's the one thing that wrestling should have cleaned up. And as far as the steroids, Conrad, I agree with you. I mean, it's a show. And, back then especially, people didn't know that steroids were bad for you or anything else. I mean, look at baseball. I mean, NFL started testing in '86 when the Mitchell report came out. Baseball starts testing years later because they lived off of McGuire and Sosa hitting all those home runs and Bonds. They loved it until all of a sudden they turned on them. They go, hey, how dare you guys? Yeah, well, those pitchers were taking shit too. It's just like there's so much hypocrisy involving all these drugs. Be like, oh, they shouldn't do that. They shouldn't do this. Give me a freaking break. You're not there, and you don't understand what was going on at the time. And am I glad that they're testing now? Yeah, I am, because I think they should test for everything. That way guys aren't compelled to do anything. But back in the day when they're trying to clean it up, they made a mistake. They should have cleaned up pills first.
Who knows? It's chicken and the egg, but I was friends with a former Padres and Pirates pitcher once upon a time. And when the whole topic of steroids came up in the early 2000s, he said what you just said, and it knocked my socks off, because everybody at the time, through the 98 run with Sosa and McGuire, and then in 01 when Bonds is just hitting stuff in the outer space, He created a huge dialogue about steroids in sports. But when he said, well, yeah, they had to, the pitchers were doing it first. And I'm like, wait,
100%.
what? And he goes, yeah, dude, we had all the pressure in the world. Do you want to go up there and don't you want to give yourself every advantage you can? If you know, I've got to pitch against Darryl Strawberry, and if he takes it yard, I may get sent back down to the minors. I'm going to give myself every chance and every opportunity I can to keep this gig going. So if the pitchers start and then the batters have to do it to keep up, like, I know that it's not the same, and there's a lot of people who talk about the purity of baseball, and I get all that, but on some level, it's a show, and I get that's competitive, and we're paying based on sport. But in wrestling, I don't think that matters. Like the narrative about did Brock Lesnar take steroids or did John Cena take steroids? What would it have mattered at all? What are we talking about? Like, I don't want to go to the movie and see a superhero movie. Imagine if they did a Rocky with Stallone without steroids. He doesn't look like an action figure. He doesn't look like a Marvel figure now. Like, that's what it's entertainment. If it's not combat, like you're not hitting me in the head, I don't get the big deal.
I don't either. And if I can give a little word for a baseball purist, how about this? How about 2 words? How about fuck you?
Okay. Well, there's
all you baseball purists out there. You couldn't stop some of the pitchers from snorting up the first base line in the 70s. Don't talk to me about the purity of baseball. The strike almost killed baseball. Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa were putting 30 and 40,000 people in the stands for batting practice when you couldn't sell a ticket when the strike almost killed it. And you want to talk about the purity of baseball? Hey, how about 2 more words? Fuck you. How about the fact that Nolan Ryan never had to bat against a black pitcher? How about the fact that Walter Johnson never had to pitch against a black batter? And you're telling me now about the purity of baseball? How about fuck you? I love baseball. I bet on baseball every single day. I love everything about it. But these guys, you talk about the purity of the game, these guys were taking what was allowed by baseball because they weren't testing them. So this is baseball's fault. Is it McGuire's fault? Is it Sosa's fault? 100% no. They were doing what they could because everybody else was doing it as well. Look, I don't know if they've ever been busted for steroids. I think they obviously that they took them, but baseball is the one that never tested. Baseball is the one that thought, oh man, this is great. These guys are hitting the ball 400 feet. And all of a sudden when they're done, you throw them under the bus and say, we got to protect the purity of baseball. Yeah. How about you protect the purity of baseball when Kennesaw Mountain Landis and Cap Anson were keeping blacks out of the game? I just have no time and no respect for anybody that throws these guys under the bus for the purity of a sport that has a lot of issues to it.
Double J, Jeff Jarrett, here to tell you a little bit about the nonstop savings happening over here at SaveWithConrad.com. Are high credit card balances holding you down on the card? If you're looking to give a guitar shot to your credit card debt or give your home the push it deserves with some upgrades and remodeling, you need to go to SaveWithConrad.com. That's right, SaveWithConrad.com. Conrad and his team are routinely helping listeners save $5, $6, $7, even $800 a month. Oh, did I mention you get to skip your next 2 house payments? Take a cue from The Last Outlaw, because if anybody knows how to get the bag, it's me. Strut on over to SaveWithConrad.com today and see how much money you can save for free. That's right, it's SaveWithConrad.com.
NMLS number 1281698 and 203902. Equal housing lender.
SaveWithConrad.com. Well, it wasn't that long ago you were riding through Iowa in a cornfield and you probably heard, if you build it, they will come. And instead of going to baseball, you decided to invite James Beard to Curtain Jerkers. I know he's your longtime great close personal friend, but I have such high respect for him, and I can't believe you and Cassio had to bring some of your sophomore humor to him. Ladies and gentlemen, take a look. It's John's favorite part of the show, Curtain Jerkers.
All right, John, I'm going to let you introduce the man of the hour on this one, because you not only are longtime friends with him, you did introduce him to the Hall of Fame here in Waterloo.
Yes, I did,
well.
and justifiably so. He's simply the best referee I've ever been in the ring with, and I've been in the ring with I don't know how many tens, if not hundreds of referees in my lifetime. And he is the absolute very best. He's also a great booker. He's a good friend of mine. All the above.
All the above.
Now tell him his name.
They know him. It's James Beard. Well, you don't fucking know him. It's James Beard.
No, them. The
James Beard. What the fuck?
We only have one person watching.
People. Now, well, what, have you seen the numbers? Have you seen the numbers of this podcast?
I thought we had them hidden.
We got to click a setting somewhere.
Well, he counts as 2.
He counts as 2. It's a McGuire twin.
It's a McGuire twin. They count as 4.
Bobby McGuire.
Bobby McGuire.
I hear he's going to make a debut.
Bobby McGuire is coming back.
Now, this is one of the reasons we've had you on here now, because you helped with his debut. Tell everybody about that.
I did. Well,
thank you, brother.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I was at the Sportatorium on a Friday afternoon talking with Skandar Akbar about the TV that night, and we had a hole in the main event. I could never remember. John said it's Lou Perez. It probably was.
I think it was Lou Perez, who was Al Perez's working cousin.
Yeah. Okay. But anyway, he was supposed to be there. Some kind with a flight or something. I don't know what it was.
It's like the one Frisbee, somebody sitting down. You have no idea who either one of those guys were. Just like the McGuire twins, right? Yep. You just said okay. You not only don't care, you don't know, you don't care.
Okay, it was Bobby McGuire.
It was Bobby McGuire.
Yeah. And he couldn't get his fat ass on the plane.
Yeah.
So he missed again.
Yeah, so we had a hole in the main event, right? Yeah. So it's just like TV. It always happens that way. You got to do something. But anyway, we got our champion on the main event that night, right? Rod Price.
Yep.
And I hear a knock on the door. We're just sitting there, Sportatorium in the afternoon, trying to get this thing straightened out. Hear a knock on the door, go answer the door, and there he is. He's standing there with his bag in hand and everything. Can I help you? I'm John Layfield. I'm looking for a job.
Yeah. And that's what he did. That's exactly what he did.
You want a job? Or you want to do a job?
Yeah.
Well, I don't go. Either one. Yeah. Are you a wrestler? Well, I want to be, or something like that. Anyway, he told me he'd been trained, and Brad Ringus trained him. And I thought, well, Brad trained you, then you got to know something.
Now, this is what you brought up a good point when you were talking about it. Back then, especially, that was a big name drop to tell who you were trained by.
Oh, yeah.
That was how you got your foot in the door.
It was a big deal, yeah, because you didn't have wrestling schools back then.
There wasn't social media clips and video
and these
reels.
great trainers just didn't train many people. Hero Matsuda, Billy Robinson, Carl Gotch, Brad Roggins. They just didn't train many people.
If they didn't see anything in you, they wouldn't mess with you.
Right.
I mean, it's not like today where it's a money grab. You know, where they just take anybody and everybody. So when he said that, I thought, oh, well, you got a big guy, young. Maybe we do something with him. So I took him in there and introduced him to Dak. And we talked a little bit, and you could tell. I mean, you can tell somebody knows anything, you know, even if they haven't had a match. at least he had a clue, you know. And Axe says, "Well, let's just put him in the main event." And I'm going like, "What?" He never had a match, and we'll put him in the main event with our champion.
Against the champion.
And it's sold out Sportatorium.
It's sold out.
Sold out.
Yeah. So I'm going, well, okay. I mean, what could happen? It
gets beat.
Well, and that's the deal. And I told him up front. I said, look, if I tell you to go home, go home. And the deal was, with Ack, he said, if he's a shits, just tell Rod to pin him, and it's over with.
Yeah.
And if he looks like he's got something, then let's just go through with it. And we got a big guy we can use and do something with.
Yeah.
And we got in the ring, and a couple of minutes, I knew that we were going to be okay. So we just went through the whole match. I guess I called a lot of it, and I even did that for Rod a lot. But we got through the match, and that's where it all started. And then, we became really close friends after that.
That seems very out of the ordinary for a ref to be calling the match.
Oh yeah, I'll answer that. Yeah. I've only seen a couple that in my entire life, and I've seen the great ones in Mick McMichael and Didier Gopp in Europe. All the great ones in Japan I worked with. The great ones in the United States, Mexico. I've only seen two that could call matches. Is James and Nick Patrick. That's the only time I've seen. And James could call a match
for both guys in the ring. So I'd see their booking thing. They put 2 guys in the ring, 2 young guys. James would sit there and call the match for both of them. Not just suggest things, not just say, hey, why don't you try this, or during a match, get some heat or do something.
I had to do that a lot, especially with the younger guys. I mean, you got a guy in there's experience, you don't have to say much.
Yeah.
Unless I feel something. And back then, the guys that I worked with a lot. So if I suggested something, then that's the way I tried to put it. Like I wasn't trying to call their match, but I suggest something, and if it felt right, they do it. It's one of those things that I had an act for, I guess. But I wanted to be. I didn't want to just be a referee, center accountant, and, 1, 2, 3, and that kind of thing. I had aspirations to be a little bit more than that.
Yeah.
So I wanted to know everything I could about the business. And part of that is learning psychology and how to develop a match. And, I learned from guys like Johnny Valentine, Red Bastien, Gary Hart, Skandar Akbar himself. I just listened, paid attention.
But that's why James was such an important figure in Japan and Texas and everywhere he's been. He was the figure in Japan when I was over there. I got to work with James in Japan. James came to Europe with me, and we got to work over there as a heel referee.
That was a blast.
Oh, my God.
That was a
friggin' blast.
Tell me.
Oh, man,
Good Lord, did we get heat.
John called me, and he says, hey, look, we got an idea over here. We want you to come to Germany. He was in Bremen?
Bremen, I think.
What year?
Bremen or Hanover?
95?
95 or 4, one of those 2 years.
Something like that. It was cold as shit over there, too, man. I mean, freezing.
Oh, yeah, it was miserable.
Good God, in December. And this was getting down to their last big blow-off thing. They had this, they had like a tournament every place you go.
Yeah.
And they worked the same building like 7 nights a week, weren't you?
7 nights a week. We'd work it for almost 8 straight weeks.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Same
Yeah,
building, same arena.
7.
You'd have the same people. They'd pay a season pass. They come every single night.
Yeah, full. And this building held what, like 7,000, 8,000?
Yeah, it was. And the buildings were. They weren't huge buildings, but they were full.
Yeah.
On the weekends especially.
Wow.
Yeah. Anyway, he called me and told me, they had an idea to do something. Had no idea what it was going to be, really. But John, I thought, hell yeah, I'll get a trip to Germany and have a little fun with John and get to see him. I hadn't seen him in a while because he'd been over there working. So I show up, I land in Frankfurt. The first thing he does is he takes me to this big building about 2-3 blocks away from the airport, and it's a whorehouse. It looked like a prostitute vending machine.
Yeah.
Really?
They called it window shopping.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
You're standing in the
all
window.
These windows all the way up and down, and these girls are sitting in there. And so John says, we got to get a picture, man. And we kept trying to get a picture, and they kept moving.
Yeah.
They didn't want
to get
No, they said, fuck y'all. We're not doing that.
We got to get a picture.
Yeah. You want a picture, you pay. And we're like, no, we don't want to pay. We just want a picture.
We just want a picture.
Yeah, shit.
You didn't visit it. You just window shop.
You got window shopping.
Yeah, we were window shopping. Yeah, But anyway,
I took Dutch to one time. We were there in Hamburg, and I said, Dutch, come on, I'm going to show you how you go window shopping. So I took Dutch down in the red light district in Hamburg, which is one of the biggest in the freaking world. And I tell the girls in German, I said, it's my friend's birthday. I'll pay for whatever he wants. So they think they got this rich American that's going to pay for everything. So they all surround Dutch. And Dutch got the fanny pack. He thinks they're trying to rob him because he's so cheap. And he's like, got his hands on his fanny pack. Tell him to leave me alone. Finally, when the girl says in English, says, listen, 45 marks for 45 minutes. He said, I better bring a newspaper. I need something to do the last 42.
You took that Tennessee hillbilly.
Oh, yeah. It was so funny. He could not get out of there quick enough. He thought they were trying to rob him. He didn't know that I was ribbing him and told him that I was paying for it.
That's hilarious. No, I can just see Dutch. Anyway, we did that and got a train. We went on a train, didn't we?
Yeah.
That's pretty cool, though.
Train through Germany
from Frankfurt to Bremen. That was about a 2-3 hour ride, something like that. So we get there, and ZZ Top was playing in the building next to us.
What?
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah, this building was like had the one place where we did the wrestling, like 7,000 or 8,000 people in it. Then they had a building attached to it that was like 30,000 or so.
A big arena, yeah.
Yeah, big arena, and they were playing there.
Wow.
Yeah, so I was going, oh, that's cool, you know. And anyway, I get there, and the first night, Mick, I guess it was Mick, that came up and started telling me what to do.
The referee, Mick McMichael.
Yeah. He comes up and he says, okay, here's the deal. He said, we want you to go out and sit in the crowd, and when the time's right, John had a match with the champion that night. And they were going to do some kind of squirrely finish or something like that, where John got kind of screwed over, or it looks like he got screwed over. And I'm supposed to come out of the bleachers and start yelling and screaming and cussing or whatever I do, and accusing them of cheating him.
Oh,
you know, and the problem is they didn't smarten up the security.
They never did. They never did.
No. And so the time comes, and I come out of the bleacher just screaming and calling them all kinds. I don't know. They couldn't understand what I was saying, I guess. But anyway, I was, you know, giving them a hard time. So I go walking toward the ring, and the security just, I'm going like, oh, shit.
Forgot about this part.
Yeah. So John jumps down, and he just spreads, you know, like the Red Sea. I go walking on up there, and I just lay in on them, on Mick and the champion, and I start talking about how the Germans are cheating the foreign guys and not treating them right, and blah, da, 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 da. I mean, it went on and on and on and on. And all of a sudden, I heard this big thundering voice. Stop! It was Otto.
Oh.
Otto Wine.
Yeah, I never met him. Never talked to him. And I'm going like, oh, shit, I hope I did the right thing. And he said, come here. So I jumped down off the ring, and I started in on him. And he let me go for a minute or two, and then he cut me off. And he said, who are you? And I told him I was an NWA official, which was kind of true. It was kind of true. I was an NWA referee.
Yeah.
You know, so I thought, yeah, that'll work. And I'm over here expecting how they treat the foreign wrestlers, you know, all some kind of bullshit like that. I went on and on and on, and finally he cut me off, and he says, hand me your passport. I went, oh, wow.
Oh no.
Yeah. So I had my little fanny pack, you know, like we all carried. I had my passport, and I was going like, I'm going to hand a guy I never met before in my life
seen it again.
my passport.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't even know if he's really pissed off at me or not.
Yeah.
You know, if I did the right thing or whatever. So I got it out, and I'm going to, here. He said, I'm going to make sure you're who you say you are.
Oh.
So I went back at him again. And then the time right, I don't know.
Well, what are y'all doing in the ring?
Oh, he's standing there.
The match was over, so I was
Yeah,
furious.
he's kind of backing me. He was backing me up.
I got you.
They had mistreated me.
Yeah, he'd been mistreated.
Always.
Yes.
Seems to be the story of you.
Absolutely, yeah.
You get mistreated a lot.
I am. Thank you.
Want to grow your business with the power of podcast advertising? Reach loyal, engaged audiences through trusted host endorsements across the Podcast Heat Network. To learn more about advertising opportunities, email dave@podcastheat.com or visit our website at podcastheat.com.
So we walk out together, and the crowd was, boy, they were pissed.
Yeah, they were odd.
They were pissed right then. And they spent the next several days building this thing up, and even in the shoot media. Yeah.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And you know, I was going on about stuff. John's going on about stuff. And we finally, what the whole deal was, I was trying to set up a final match between him and Luke
Poirier.
The
champion.
He was the champion. And we were pissing him off to the point where he finally said, I'll just do anything. I don't care what kind of match it is. That kind of deal. We had a shoot press conference with media, all the regular media and all that stuff there. And this little sports, I guess he was a sports writer, I don't know, somebody comes up to me and starts saying, the German people aren't really like this. Yeah. So I just went off on him.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and here comes Luke.
And I'm like, in the last century, you guys have tried to take over the world twice. Don't tell me you're not like this.
Yeah. We've got proof. Bunch of Nazis.
We got proof.
Yeah. And anyway, Luke comes over there. He starts arguing with me. John comes over there, Dick Slater, and I don't know who all was there. There's a bunch of guys. And it turned into a brawl right there, and just ad-libbed it.
Yeah.
Wasn't planned or anything. It just turned into a brawl.
And they ate it up, too.
Yeah, they ate it up like crazy. And so by the time we got to the match, the crowd was really hot. I mean, they put me in they have a parade before every before the matches where they bring all the wrestlers out, and he put me in that. So I'm out there in this parade. Well, you come into the ring with all the wrestlers there in there, and man, they were so pissed off. And what we did, we set up a bull rope match.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. So because Luke is so mad, he'll do anything. He'll take anything. I don't care. I just want to kill that cowboy. So we had the bull rope match, and we got down to the finish, and I was flashing him cards because that's a cool gimmick. You flash these cards for like a fine. Like a red card means something, and I don't know what all.
Yeah, you find people. So what you do is you find the heel first. Of course, nobody's going to come up and nobody cares. Then you find the baby face when they retaliate. Well, what the fans do is they come up and pay the fine because they love the baby face.
Yep. They're paying it for him.
That's right.
And it's just waiting.
Like a big match. But I mean, this is
amazing.
And you know what happens to that money.
That's amazing.
This is 30 years ago. You'd have $500,000 sometimes in a big match, and you split the money with you and the other guy and the referee.
I figured that
and the ring announcer, because ring announcers on it too, because he'd make a big deal about the fine.
Yeah. Oh yeah, he'd start hyping it up.
Yeah. Then a fan would come up and pay it, and he'll be all mad about it. And
that's a great game.
So I'm just finding the shit out of them.
I'm just finding the shit out of them.
Why not?
Run the tally. Yeah.
Why not?
What's the worst you can have?
Yeah, good deal. Anyway, we had the match, and they did the gimmick where everybody touched the corner at the same time, and then I think he started to try to hit you with a cowbell, and I stopped him, which is what you should do, right? As a referee, it's what I should do. It's illegal. And he shoved me, and I shoved me into John, and John hit the last deal, so John wins.
Oh,
yeah.
Yes, I did.
You actually won one.
Fair and square. I never cheated.
Funny, Bobby McGuire.
But it was probably the most fun I've ever had in this business.
Sounds fun.
It was a blast, man. I didn't get to do that here. I had to always play it straight and be the guy.
So when we debuted Glenn Jacobs, he came over and
Glenn was there.
Yeah, Glenn was going to be my tag team.
That same tour?
No, same tour, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So when Glenn was debuting, I sat in the bar all day drinking with fans and telling them that my buddy's coming over here. He's huge. He's going to run roughshod on this place. So I'm sitting there just telling everybody, bragging about the fact my buddy's coming from America and he's going to run roughshod on this place. Well, Glenn gets out there and then loses pretty quick. So when he does, I'm like, people all turning at me, laughing at me, and pointing at me, in the bar, because I've been in there for hours telling the fans that my buddy's going to kill this guy. So when I'm sitting there like, what the fuck? I'm so embarrassed, So when the guy who beat him comes by me, I grab him and throw him over the bar and go over the bar and beat him up, So, and Glenn is going to come over the bar and help me. So he comes to go climb over the bar, and he thinks that the other guy who's supposed to come in and help in the fight has grabbed him. And I was like, hey, look behind you. It was some little old lady. Glenn's 300 pounds and she's holding it back, and Glenn's working like he can't get over. It's great.
It looks like the little old lady's keeping.
That's right, yeah.
He's already got me.
That's right. He's already got me. Now he's got a little lady.
And now Meemaw got him.
Yeah, my Meemaw got him.
My big buddy from America.
Yeah. That's right.
Are you ready to get this thing started? The Hall of Fame Comedy Show. I'm excited to be here. Lifelong wrestling fan. I'll tell you one of the first funny stories I had in my life. I was 6 years old, and as you can tell, I was fat my entire life. When I was born, I was 6 inches long and weighed 22 pounds. Yep, that's what my mom said too. Holy shit is what she said. So big kid all my life, and then about 6 years old, as I was into wrestling, I bought the Hulkamania workout set. Anybody else have the Hulkamania workout set? I can see there's so many athletes in here. It paid off. Like myself. I got my dad to order it. My mom had no idea what it was. My dad ordered it for me, and it got in, and it's these little 3-pound weights, right? Little headband, the sweatbands, had a cassette player, had a cassette tape you played, told you to eat your vitamins, say your prayers, And then it gave you a workout to do. And I was excited. And I'd never done, as you can tell, any workouts before or after that. But I'm in my room, and I put this in my cassette player, and I'm playing, hey, brother, eat your vitamins. Are you ready? You had your headgear on. You got your weights out. We're going to start. And we're going to start with push-ups. And then, so I'm like, not doing push-ups. So I'm like, this is going to be a good cassette when I get cranking here. I'm going to skip the push-up part. And then he goes, we're going to do sit-ups. So I'm like, I can do some sit-ups. So I roll over the floor. And so I'm in the floor. I'm on the side of my bed, up against the wall over here. And I'm doing some sit-ups and grunting and panting and dying. And about that time, my mother walks in. Now, she can't see me. She can just hear her son on the other side of the bed going, oh, oh, oh. And she's like, hello? And I was like, how's it going, Mother? Thank you. One person got that. Thank you. She didn't get it either. She goes, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm pumping up a python. And she goes, what's happening? Is your sister in here? And I go, well, I invited her, but she didn't want to do it, Mother. And she's like, okay, that's good to know. What are you doing? And she's like, got to get this anaconda 27 inches. She said, son, I'm going to walk out of this room and act like this never happened. Don't ever do this again. And I took her words. I've never worked out since that night, people, okay? Listen to your mother.
Now, would you like to repeat the story that you told when you introduced him?
Oh, my Lord.
What story? Oh, yeah. So James and I used to ride together all the dang time. So we'd ride together, and James would come get me, and we go get Killer Tim Brooks, usually in Ferris, and we go up and get Scandal Rag Bar in Garland, and then drive where we're going. So, but this time we're going to get some room somewhere. So we go to the motel, more like it, and there's only one room left. So that's fine. So he says, sir, there's only one bed. So, okay, whatever. We don't have a choice. So we get in the hotel room. I go in there and shower, and I'm 300-something pounds at the time. I take off all my clothes. I'm buck naked. I hop in right in the middle of the bed, and I said, James, I sleep buck naked. Just want to let you know. James stands there for a second. He can tell he's thinking about it. Takes off all his clothes. He says, so do I. And he hopped in bed with me. And that's how we slept all night. All night. Neither one of us will move. And I'm going, James. I'm going, James. This is very uncomfortable. You really should move. He goes, nope. You go. I don't want to sleep on the floor.
We lay there for probably about 30 minutes. No noise, no words, no nothing.
No noise.
Neither one of us will move. We don't want to touch each other we don't want to touch each other by mistake.
John says, don't you ever tell anybody about this. And since then, he's told the whole
I've told everybody. Yeah. And it's on your introduction now.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. Yeah, my introduction to the Hall of Fame. There I am. Buck naked in bed with this guy.
That's right. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you didn't make me do that for this show. You could have came out the first episode and said, I do all my shows.
I'm just glad he told one of the tales that he could tell publicly. That's all.
Well, I mean, he embarrassed you. Would you like to tell one on him before we get out of here?
Oh my goodness.
John said, wait a minute now.
There was none on me. I was a stand-up guy.
Yeah.
No issues whatsoever.
I took him to, I helped book him in Japan the first time he went over there and several times after that. And it was so funny. But Bob Orton was with us, Bob Orton Jr. And Bob just couldn't believe that this guy had been in the business like 2 months.
And I'm in Japan. So what happened was when I'm in that main event that first night, Killer Nagasaki sees me. Well, he didn't know I can't work. Yeah. He didn't know that I had.
He sees a big guy.
He sees a big guy. He goes, who's the big guy? He goes, oh, he played a little pro football. He was trained by Brad Rangans, which was a big deal. And he goes, and obviously I'm in the main event, sold out Sportatorium. He thinks I've been working for years. He didn't know I've been working like for about 32 minutes.
Yeah.
So,
he says, we bring him Japan. And I went, are you sure?
Are you sure?
Are you sure?
So Bob Orton tells me in that gravelly voice, he goes, kid, you do some stuff, because I was his tag team partner. I'm Bob, the main event of WrestleMania 1. I'm his tag team partner 2 months in the business in Japan.
Uh-huh.
And Bob says, kid, some stuff you do looks really good and some makes no fucking sense whatsoever. And he goes, how long you been working? And I said, 2 months, sir. He goes, no, not how long you been in Japan. How long you been working? I said, 2 months, sir. He goes, the fuck are you doing here? I don't know. I do not know.
He comes in. This is like maybe his second trip over there. We're in Carrican Hall.
Okay.
Taping.
The big one. That's the big. That's the big hall.
That's where everybody goes.
Not the big hall, but that's the sacred.
It was tied to it.
That's the sacred hall. That was it.
Yeah. He comes. And I'm sitting in the dressing room with Bob. And John's in, I don't know, second or third match or something like that, and he comes walking into the dressing room, and we're sitting there, and he said, Mr. Orton, I need to know something. He said, I think this match is supposed to go outside the ring. We're going to have a big brawl and everything, and I think they're going to use chairs. I said, how do I use a chair? And what Bob tell you?
He goes, kid, you just pick it up and swing it like Babe Ruth.
And John goes, okay.
Yeah, so
off he goes. And Bob looked at me and he said, I think we need to go watch this.
I'd been getting beat by chairs. Because what they do was they didn't want to fight me right away because they didn't know. They didn't need to. They'd blow me up and then stretch me and just beat the shit out of me with chairs, with everything. They beat me. I got beat half to death out of the tour. I got so sick of it. And I'm like, Mr. Horton, how do you use the chair? He goes, just pick it up and swing it like Babe Ruth, kid. Okay, thank you.
We're out there peeking through the curtains like this. They get outside and they're brawling and everything. John picks up the chair and here it comes. He swings it like Babe Ruth. The wrestler's name was Sarumi. I remember this. Yeah, he was a big guy.
Big guy,
been around a long
curly
time.
black hair.
Yeah, he swung that thing and hit him, and you could see him thinking. I mean, it went right across here. After the matches, of course, all that finally got all settled down. After the matches, we're sitting in the dressing room. Sarumi comes running in there. You go, what matter with he?
I come in and Bob's sitting there, and I sit down across from him, and I just kind of look at him, and he goes, I think you overdid it, kid.
Oh,
oh my God!
Man,
that poor man, he had no idea what was coming.
Yeah, I'd
taken out all the abuse of Brad Ryan stretching me for months, and these Japanese wrestlers beating the shit out of me. I'm finally getting to swing a chair, and I'm going to, God Almighty, brother.
And here's how smart I am. I ended up taking Bobby Duncombe Jr. over there and teaming him with him.
Okay.
It was like 2 times the problem. Bobby thought he was still playing arena football.
Yeah.
Chasing a quarterback. He never stopped. Boy, he'd come in with, what was that he called it, the Duncombe Dog?
Duncombe Dog.
He did some kind of
Bobby
move.
just makes stuff up. He was a great athlete, but he's a really tough guy.
Yeah.
And he was strong. He just makes shit up. He goes, I'm going to do the Duncombe Dog. I go, what is that? He goes, you'll see. And he just would make some shit up. And I'm like,
he nearly killed a guy with it. I don't know what it was, but he did.
Bobby, you're calling that a Duncombe Dog. I think it's more like attempted murder.
It's a crime.
It's a crime. Is what
all the Japanese boys were complaining. They said, you can't slow him down, can't do it. So Sakurada, we're in Sakurada's hometown. And Sakurada said, I put Bobby in the match with me. I said, okay, that'll be interesting. So we get in the ring, and he just leans on him. I mean, for like 10 minutes, and Bobby's just huffing and puffing and puffing. The Sakurada looked around at me, he go, Bobby blow up. Yeah, he just.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
He wore Bobby. He wore Bobby.
Yeah, he wore him out after that, man.
He did the same thing to me too. When Booker T comes over there and he goes, and he saw me work with Kendall Nagasaki, Mr. Sakurada, and Kendall beat the shit out of me with a chair. And I came back there and Booker goes, now listen, I'm part of the Ebony experience. He said, he don't do that shit to me. He said, he got to know who I am. I said, okay. I said, what are you going to do when he grabs a chair? He said, I'm going to kick him in the belly, take it from him, and wear his ass out. I said, okay. All right. Be interested to see this. Next day, Kendo grabs a chair. Booker kicks him in the belly, grabs a chair, wears his ass out. I thought, holy shit, Booker did it. Then Kendo got the chair back.
Oh, Oh.
And at one point, Booker looked at the back where I was. He goes, ah! It was so funny. I knew he came back to the dressing room. I said, Booker, I thought you were one half the experience. He goes, he doesn't know that.
He just know you may let it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, he just ate him up. Man.
Oh, my God, it was so funny.
God, he beat him to death with it. He let him have his little thing, but that,
Booker had Bobby so worked up. Bobby played at the University of Texas, started all 4 years, but in all those 4 years, they never beat Oklahoma. And Booker found out somehow. He started reminding of that everywhere he goes. Bobby said, we're in the middle of Japan. Pull this bus over. Me and Booker are fighting. Like, Booker, would you leave Bobby alone, please? No. He never beat Oklahoma. Oh, my God. Oh, so good.
Yeah, we had some good times over there, though. We were kind of, I guess, sponsored by the Yakuza.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, the Mafia guys.
Oh, yeah. They'd attend our shows and stuff, and they'd tell us that don't go over there.
So we had when I was sitting there, Bob Orton, my first secretary, whatever it was, he goes, see you in a couple days, kid. I said, why are we going to see you in a couple days? He goes, I can't go to that island. I said, you can't go to an island? Because there's like 4 islands in Japan. And I said, you can't go to the island? He goes, yeah, I slapped the wrong guy apparently a few years ago, got a mafia hit on me. Bob had a mafia hit put on him. He could not go to an island.
He was legit. He wasn't joking around.
No. We had to leave him in a town to go over there.
We left him in the town. And every time we go over there, we'd have to go to the island and come back and pick Bob up. And Bobby's sitting there waiting with his bag, a little book. And
he just knew. It was like, I can't go.
Can't go.
No big deal.
Yeah, they got a hit out on me.
We're good here. No.
Yeah, those guys were interesting, I tell you. Yeah,
we were there one day, and we were on across the island, like across from Mount Fuji, on the other side where the volcanic hot springs are and stuff. So the last day of the trip, so we're down there having a beer. Anyway, a couple of young kids that were driving the ring truck back came down, had a beer with us, and left. And we get back to Narita the next day, the airport, and you could tell something was wrong, but I didn't, don't know what. So anyway, we had taken a couple pictures back then. Had to have the picture developed. So when we got back to the States, we found out that those kids that had driven back had a wreck and died, were killed in a car wreck, and so I realized I got the last picture of this young man alive. And so I develop it and take the negatives and I send it over to the office. Hey, would you send this to the family? Tell them last night he had a good, was having a good time, and I'm sorry for their loss. And he seemed like a good young man. So we get back to Japan the next time. Kendall Nagasaki says, "Would you need to come with me to the meeting, a sponsor?" I said, "Okay." So I get there, walk in, and there's the picture that I sent of this young man. It's a wake. And he wants me to speak at it.
No.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
So I pulled him over. I said, Mr. Sakurada, I said, I have to talk to you. I said, I don't even know this young man's name. I just happened to be there and took a picture and I sent it back to his family, but I don't know him at all. I don't even know his name. I said, I can't possibly give a eulogy for him. I don't know his name. He goes, it's okay. Nobody speak English.
What did he say?
Talking
about what a great guy he was?
Yeah, no. I got up there like my college roommate. I thought, well, fuck, what do I do? So I'm sitting there, I thought, well, if my college roommate died, how would I give a eulogy? So I got up there, got a eulogy for him. I told a couple funny stories, got a little sentimental at one time, got a little teared up.
You faked a wake?
Yeah. Yes.
He worked
the wake.
Worked the wake.
I did. I worked the wake. James was there. I worked the wake.
Crazy. It's crazy.
What are you doing over there crying?
I was laughing. This idiot don't know any of this.
I don't know any of them, but nobody spoke English. It's like James the only one going, who was he even talking about? Like what? Who? Like you had to have experiences with this guy? That was the only time we had ever met him was that little short time.
That's your best friend.
These people are sitting there going,
yes. And when they're done, they go, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Awake. It's pretty crazy.
You can fool them sometimes.
Well, brother, you got yours this weekend, man.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I know it was a big weekend for you.
It was. It was a lot of fun and real honor. And I appreciate the kind words.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
They're all true.
And the naked story.
And the naked story.
Yeah.
Well, I told James, don't you ever tell anybody.
Yeah, right.
I've told everybody who has ears.
Yeah. like I said, it could have been worse. There's other stories.
Oh, yeah.
This is when John usually cuts off the show.
That's right.
We're out of time.
Well, we're out of time.
We are beautifully out.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
We got a gig to get to.
Yeah, that's good.